Yeah.
McDonald's, like,
Meeting.
Yes. Yes.
so we got all our meetings in order.
Trying to, I don't know, we're live.
For economic development office. So welcome everyone, council, to this meeting of September 26th. We will call our meeting to order. I turn it over to Madame Clerk for the adoption of the agenda.
I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Champagne and Kelly. The draft agenda presented to council and dated the 26th day of September 2023, be adopted as prepared.
Carrie, thank you so much. Then accepting the minutes of the previous meetings, there's 2 meetings.
Mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Trahan and Deputy Mayor Akers. The minutes of the regular council meeting of September 12th, 2023. And the special council meeting of September 18th, 2023, be adopted as prepared.
All in favor? Carrie, thank you so much. Any business arising from the minutes? There being none, any declarations of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest thereof? There being none, and chair comments. I simply wanted to make a comment because this week I was impressed with the number of posts that were on our Facebook page pertaining to Rail Week. And as I was reflecting on that, I thought how great, as our first delegation tonight deals with trains and the railway. And so the municipality did a great job. Those posts were informative and really good to have shared them with the public. So those are my chair's comments, and it brings us to our first delegation. Very delighted this evening that we're able to welcome Mr. Bill Love, William Love officially, and I know he's accompanied by Bill Ferguson, but I'll leave that to him to introduce Ferguson. So Mr. Love, please come forward.
Bill and I are gonna do this together. I'm going to practice.
There is a presentation. Will be for the public school.
Carrie, fire up.
Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Ferguson and I have partners in crime here for the last probably almost 6 years. We sort of had a couple of goes at this. I got to this point where we're at the concept and we've been chopping it around with what we call stakeholders. Key stakeholders. So I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to present tonight. I know you got the package with the longer version of the presentation in it. So we'll cover off highlights of that package, so we're free to answer any questions, comments you guys may have at the end.
So we'll just wait 1 second. We seem to be having a slight technical problem.
Uh-oh.
Had trouble with our server and internet all day today.
Put close like about.
Was it power?
Maybe every time.
That's steps.
I can just open up my.
Sure. Yes. That's the old computer.
Office.
Yeah.
We can, it's,
We'll open up as a PDF.
okay.
I could have told you that.
Oh, no, that will. I got it. I know. It's so.
You don't believe I do.
It's such a great presentation, so it's worth trying to get it out.
Structure.
Your best over, okay.
Perfect.
So did you want to go through your presentation on your own? Click to the next slide, or did you want me to take care of it?
Now you can take care of it. Like I said, you guys got the full presentation, the meeting materials. We'll just go through the three key things I think we want to just hit and highlight for you guys. Basically, local tourist infrastructure, kind of the unique opportunity, and then the local economic impact. So that's kind of what we want to cover off. It's, like I say, it's concept. We have lots of challenges along the way to get to where we are, but we're at the point where we think we need to garner. What do you go, but 13 key stakeholders? 13 key stakeholders that we're doing the tour on. And if we get the positive feedback from the key stakeholders, then we'll go into a business plan. We don't have a business plan per se. I think it's putting the cart in front of the horse. So we said we got to get to the key stakeholders. We got to get basically to the tracks. If there's no tracks, there's no train. So you don't quite have a business plan. Just a quick one on this advisory committee. So we believe that the board and the volunteers in this startup organization will be very much hands-on. So we want to have an outside group at an arm's length that basically would call it, so we would rely on them on subject matter expertise. Because I don't think we can have all the knowledge we need to take this on and do it, as well as hold the board accountable. So we were starting to fill some of those positions up there with names. And that would be a key part of this in terms of engaging the community and making a bigger effort than just for. Next. So when we asked this question, so you guys should know that one of the fundamental revenue pieces in this would be bus tours. Bringing people by bus to North Bay to do tourist things. So we asked our tourist operator advisor in 2017, could we get bus tours to come to North Bay? And in 2017, his answer was, it's going to be a challenge. And he highlighted some of the stuff that he said, North Bay doesn't have, at that time, didn't have the critical mass to make it easy to get bus tours here. And he said, you guys are all familiar, you come up Highway 11, you get Gravenhurst to Big Turn. He said, you can get bus tours to get to Gravenhurst to get back to Toronto in one day. He said, get them to go around that corner, it's hard. And so his advice to us was, I'm not saying it's not possible, but some of these things need to happen. And a lot of them are in the plans that are already started. So 4-star modern, I'll call it chain hotels that would be recognized as they're done. The Quince House has got moved to the waterfront, it's there. It's not super active, but there are people internationally that still come from other parts of the world to see the Quince House. Gateway Casino's done, the maturity is done. So the steam tourist train that we've talked about would be a complement to what's there. And what he said now is it would make it easier for them to consider coming to North Bay. And I guess Bill Ferguson, you can relate, many years ago, we used to get lots of bus tours here.
Yeah, I started working at the information center in the Quince Museum back in the day, and there was, 10, 15 bus tours a day there. That came in primarily for the Quince zone on the way to carrying on. So
the takeaways are the infrastructure is there now. The other takeaway from our tourist operator said there's a new tourist demographic out there. So what he's saying is there's people that have money. They want a unique experience, but they don't want to go on a boat cruise. They don't want to fly internationally anymore. They want to do, I won't say a staycation, but continental North America. He said that's an emerging group that he sees in his business, which says if you have the right package of tourism attractions, you may be able to tap into that market. The next one. So we're calling it a unique opportunity. There's nothing like this exists in Canada today, mainline steam excursions. The nearest would be Northeast US. We have all collectively in our group watched that these things are sold out. The tickets go on sale, they're usually sold out within 24 to 48 hours. Tickets range from $99 US to up to $300 US. So there is a demand there for it. Unique opportunity, the city actually owns the 503 steam locomotive, so it's not a question of we'd have to go find, buy, rent, lease one. The region has good rail infrastructure in terms of the rails are here, the capacity's here, it's not busy. Many other tourist railways have actually ended up getting locked out because the railways keep shrinking their active tracks. they get so busy, like Kamloops, they used to be able to get out of their facility onto the main line and run to Armstrong. Now they can't even get out of the yard. CP and seen the post says too busy. We don't, you're a pain in the butt, we're not letting you walk out of business. The tourist train we think fits with the, we'll call it rail heritage here in North Bay. The only reason North Bay is here is for the railway. The other thing some of the other operators have told us is, do you have local steel fabricating machining shops? If they're mining business around, they've said that's all very helpful because at the end of the day, it's just big dumb steel. There's no electronics, it's big dumb steel. So why steam is a little bit that we get, again, feedback from other operators is it has the ability to draw people from great distances to come. And that's the romantic notion of the steam train. If you package it up as an experience. So one of the things we know is you don't want to put people onto a train for 8 hours, go in the middle of nowhere and come back. That doesn't work. So it has to be a steam train that has experience. We've talked about is running the foundational revenue piece would be running from North Bay to Bonfield, tying into the first fight, probably try having a train robbery with horses with Van Dole's Ranch. That would be probably like a 4-hour trip. And what you hear is that's something that's sellable in this day and age. We got stuck on this piece forever because if you look at 503 today, it looks like it's a piece of scrap metal that's not worth anything. We found these guys in the US that are the next generation of people who trained on it. They've assured us that this is restorable. It's just a question of how much cash, how many volunteer hours do you have. So we know that it's has the ability to draw people from great distances. I just went to a place called Ellie, Northern Nevada. It's 4.5 hours from Salt Lake City. It's 4 hours from Las Vegas, and they attract 35,000 tourists a year. And that's strictly because they run steam trains. This will be the local economic impact.
Okay. So looking at the impact, railway traction. Has the potential that we're going to generate 10,000 overnight visitors to the region. The average stay, we're using statistics from RTO 1380 and from OTMPC on this. Average stay is 3.2 nights, the average spend per trip. These are pre-pandemic. So potentially any revenue impact to the area of about just over $8 million, closer to $9 million. And this is in addition to the actual revenue traction rates, so the ticket that's supposed to traction itself. And it's a combination of regular scheduled trips through the week, through the season that are designed to complement bus tours and people coming to see multiple attractions here, but also avid tours, which are special, so one-off and 1 or 2 day trips. And those are the ones that tend to sell for the $200, $300, $400. So we call them the fans of like that, we call them followers, basically. You stop the train, run past, take a picture, move to the next crossing, do the same thing again. Potential market in Northern Ontario, 16% of all overnight tourists spending about $175 million. They represent more than 1.2 billion spent in Northern Ontario. And the interest of those attractions in Northern Ontario based on the statistics available from the province, 57% historical sites, 37% museums and galleries, 24% casinos. So we have a product here that will overlap those things very nicely and provides an incredible product for those folks. In terms of what we were looking for here tonight, because we're not coming with a business plan, we're not seeking any commitment for money or anything like that. What we really need at this point is resolution of support. Support the idea in principle, the concept of it. And we also need a letter from mayor and council authored to the railway that we're most interested in working with, the one that's right through your community here, Genesee and Wyoming, railway, and the former CPR line, because this is critical to what we're doing. We're very confident that we can raise the funds and get the support to restore the locomotive to actually fire. We have a pretty good idea of what that's going to cost, what's involved with it. But there's literally no point in doing it if we can't put it on a railway. We'd just be restoring it to stick it in a park and watch it run away for another 70 years. So that makes no sense. So the goal here is to have an operation with money. We have talked with the director of the of the Ottawa Valley Railway here. He's very positive, but of course, he has to answer to folks down the US who come and help you all. I will say that Genesee and Wyoming, they do have a number of short lines where they have rail attractions that run in concert with other operations, so they're open to the idea, but they do want to see local support for that.
Is that the conclusion?
Yeah.
Okay, then we open it up to council to make comments or ask questions. We can push up.
Comments before my question. I remember. We're going to that high. To the rail center. Every kid in there, no matter if it was a wedding or whatever the case, always wanted to go and see the train. Like that was like almost a babysitter. A couple hours. I always enjoyed that. You keep mentioning other operators. Who are you talking about when you say other operators?
Well, there's a limited number of people that run steam train tourist trains, and so they've all, except one, have been very open to share their experiences and talk, share their expertise in terms of running the train, share their expertise in terms of what works and what doesn't work in terms of the attraction you experience, and some of this background stuff in terms of even dealing with Genesee and Wyoming. And so what they said is, it's a big American private company. The only thing they truly understand is political pressure, because in the US, that's how things get done, right? And so, the local general manager said it. I'm all for it. I understand you have the capacity, but you need to get a parent. So those are the operators we've been talking to. We will engage the Heritage Railway, the chief commander, all those people we've discussed with too.
I think it's parked over at the OVR yard, isn't it?
This one?
Yeah.
It's kind of on Oak Street in the middle of nowhere behind the volleyball court.
No, I think it's a great idea, but again, you gotta get your business plan together. What we can do. For sure, you're just looking for support right now, to kick it off.
Support for the concept. And number two, really, we need a letter from you guys, saying to OVR that we'd like to see this happen.
How many municipalities are you gonna receive? Are we the only one, or are we gonna see more than just us?
No, and the hit list is North Bay.
Yeah.
They're on site. There's Bonfield, Manawa, probably to this.
And then also, I think the Mr. Fidelli. Ready?
Yeah. So the line is for the railway as well. Yeah.
Questions? Any further comments?
Yeah, I guess for economic development for East Ferris, is there something we can start planning like along that rail line that would be beneficial to the experience?
The only thing we could talk about is historically, there was the original boarding house during the rail construction was called Thorncliffe
Yes, yeah.
on the rail line. So we might talk about a historical plaque or something. That's the only, what we spent a lot of our time is on Ronfield, working towards getting national historical designation for the first site. But the idea would be, the more things you can add to the basket, the more interesting it is to people. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Was Bonfield known for the first spike or the last spike?
Yeah, the first spike, yeah. But Thorncliffe was known because originally that's where they were thinking of putting the city of North Bay and the original.
I think it was Mr. Green.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And all that. So
He was a member of our council.
Yes.
Yes.
We do have a historian in our group who gets all excited about that kind of stuff. So he's going to be the guy that works on a lot. But I think we need to be, you're competing for dollars here, right? At the end of the day, that's what you're competing for. You have to put the best products forward. So I don't know if anybody is familiar with Duchesne Roasters calendar.
No.
So they do corporate events, they do weddings up to 500 people. So talk about is using that parquet at Bonfield, covered arena, bringing something like that in to do like a big roast, fish fry. And so we need to think 4-star, 5-star experience, because that's how you get bus tours to book you for the next year. So yeah, any ideas that people have, we're going to look and sort of see if it makes sense to add something to the package.
Good question, yeah. Councilor Shannon?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Bill and Bill, for the presentation. And welcome to East Ferris. And I think it's a great idea. You look down at the waterfront and one of my favorite organizations is Ryan Club. They run that little train up there and it's packed with kids. All
How
the
many
time.
visitors they had last year?
I know it's
57,000.
yes,
Right, so.
astronomical numbers. So the kids even today still want a train ride.
Sure.
That's, the first thing. So I think you're on the right track.
No pun intended.
Thank you.
So I think, it'll be exciting if, this can, get moving and get forward and that'd be great.
So conceptually, you guys, we're talking 3 to 5 years, $6 million. We split the $6 million up as 2.4 for Heritage Fund, 1.8 for Fedmore, 1.8 for the rest of us.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we.
And you're right too about the big corner. It's a big turn, right? And it's a tough turn to get, tourism to come up here. I think correct me if I'm wrong, there's a group that owns the chief commander that's right before that turn, right? So hopefully maybe they can push and help out and just feed off each other, right? So it's would be something too.
So I think maybe what we've talked about is co-marketing, co-branding. So Van Doller's branch.
Yep.
Well, they also have wilderness cabins.
Yes.
And so the idea is we co-market, co-brand all of this together, and the chief command and the train would be the key to package. You could put in front of the bus tour operator and say, come to North Bay, stay overnight because there's enough stuff here.
That's right.
If you may, I have another question, then Councilor Champagne.
Well, I was just, my family is from St. Thomas. And there's a big railway center down there and they have a brewery and all centered around, and it's a great center, right? So very historical plaques so families will for fundraising, you can, so if you've had a memory about, Council Champagne about, that you could put it on a plaque and, it becomes a fundraising opportunity too. So it's kind of a neat experience down there in St. Thomas. So
Crazy idea we heard is somebody wants to do a wall of fame for all the railroaders that have come out of Bonnfield. And the link is that there's a lot of ancestry research that goes on and people come to see where their ancestors were. And so I look at it as a pretty practical, pragmatic guy and say, really? But that happens, right? In this day and age. So people go to visit places where two cemeteries were there. So I think what we need to do is be as open to ideas that make tourism interesting to people. And training is part of it, but it's not the only.
Councilor Champagne.
Well, the one thing that comes to my mind, and I didn't see it on there, is that I just come back from a bike ride to Huntsville and I went across the park and I went back. The colors at this time of year are so beautiful. And just the amount of, I guess it's Orientals you'd call it. They're just taking pictures, staying in families, and they're looking for places to stay. This would be a great opportunity for this time of year.
It might be in the details of the bigger presentation, but we talked about a fall foliage special. What we've talked about is possibly running it from North Bay to Mattawa, tying with the ski hill. And have a bus run the other way from North Bay to Temiskaming, come down to Mattawa and then switch. So they don't see the same thing twice. Use the ski hill for lodging and start taking up ski hill. So
There's all the way through the hardwoods through Temiskaming. I know the train was
it's
there.
beautiful. Here to Mattawa to Huntsville.
Okay, well,
From my end, just one quick question. So basically, the nonprofit is not formed.
Correct.
Correct. And basically, these are interested citizens of our community who view this as an opportunity. And when you do form a board of directors, it would be I think you listed the various
Exactly.
parties that you would turn to. So this resolution, and we have a resolution, they prepared one, and we've reviewed it, and it basically, it's just a good resolution. I could read it. If council is supportive, we could pass it tonight. And then we would then issue a letter of support. So I'll read it to you, and you could say, if you'd rather we wait and direct it to staff to make sure they do a bit more research, we could also do that and bring it to our next meeting. The resolution is as follows. Is that okay with you? If I table it right now, sure, we could consider it. You have it as well.
Yeah.
Did you want to read it?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm gonna move her on seconder, please. Just, Counselor Trahan. Champagne. The corporation of the municipality of East Ferris supports in principle the concept of the Fire Up 503 organization as prepared at the council meeting of September 26, 2023. To restore Ontario Northland Railway steam locomotive number 503 to operating condition and return it to service, creating a working heritage rail attraction. The goal of the project being to provide residents and visitors with an opportunity to experience history through steam-powered rail travel that is unique to the region and true to our railway history while contributing to the region's economic and cultural vitality.
Councillor Jonathan?
Sitting on days on board.
Yes.
Who else have you talked to so far? Are we the second?
No, so Bonfield's done, we have their resolution letter of support. North Bay's done unofficially, but it has to go up through staff, it's a bigger chain of command there. So it's underway. We have basically Dick Fidelli on site. We're trying to get a hold of Anthony, but this is not a good week to get a hold of Anthony, unfortunately. Well, Mattawa, yeah, and Mac.
I just want to see.
So basically, it doesn't tie us, it doesn't commit us. We're just basically saying this is a great it's a great concept. No one can, and so that's what we're saying. We think it's a great concept, that it's great work and there's a lot of good research. And we like the idea of East Ferris. There's a lot of history. And so basically, how can we tie in? And so on that note, there's no financial commitment. So everyone, okay. Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for prepare the letter and
If it works, as a letter a little bit yourself, that'd be greatly appreciated.
So it don't have to lose day.
Yeah. Thanks
Thank
very much.
you for your work. Yeah.
Good luck, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Love, well, resident in Sarah, sorry. Yes.
I am the troublemaker on here.
So we just need to get.
He writes nice letters too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night now. Yeah, we will just wait until our next,
That's the bean counter, right?
that is our.
Oh, yeah.
Wait.
Minute, Mayor?
The minute?
Minute?
You got it.
Have a quick-
Yes, let me take a quick minute as we prepare for the next presentation.
Got water in the fridge?
Yes.
Yeah.
We should be. And we.
I'm not allowed to say this. Okay, so that's been right. So that's not allowed to say this. Why risk? Was so it's all basically legal, we're not legal, then it's responsible. That's the policy, and power.
So it got dark so soon now.
It's been dark for now. It's gonna get worse from
Fire. That's gonna be our drop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That goes to Bonfield.
Yeah. No.
I did mention earlier before the meeting started, maybe Pauline wasn't here. Yeah, so,
In the public.
yeah.
So we move now to our second delegation. We're all good to go. And basically, we have the presentation of our financial statements. And I'm very happy that we're welcoming Madame Jessica Dion of Baker Tilly. And I want the secretary introduce her agreement because we understand that there's been some changes at Baker Tilly. And yeah.
So this evening we got Jessica Dion, she's an accountant and I guess the audit manager with Baker Tilly on the North Bay. And we worked with, our team worked with Jessica's to produce our 2022 financial statements. So Jessica's here tonight to do the presentation to council.
And I guess as well, if I understand, Mr. Donad, we've always been in the past, the representative has retired, and if I understand, he may be I'll let you,
So, so Dan Lawler has been your partner. He's the one, you've seen us over the years together. He's the one that signs the audit report. He retired on June 30th. I will be admitted to partnership effective January 1st. So from your perspective, our relationship's going to continue and I will be the partner on your engagement. Have to be over the past couple of years, Dan and I have already kind of been transitioning, like I've kind of been Jason and I worked closely together. So another partner you may know, Pasquale Bausch, will be signing the audit report. I cannot sign it until January 1st. I am a licensed public accountant. Not being a partner, I'm not allowed to sign. So Pasquale signs the Baker Tilly on your audit report. But effective January 1st, I will be. So I just wanted to share that. Yeah. So from your perspective, nothing's really going to change. I have a role, our audit manager has been working, he's been doing it day to day, on site, and I come visit these. Working. So the relationship won't change, just kind of with the title.
Just as well, council, I printed a hard copy of the financial statements and draft for you guys this evening.
Thank you.
And Jessica will go through comparative analysis, like she'll touch on everything that's in here in a different format. But if you've got questions, I did a hard copy because it's a little easier to go through sometimes. So.
Yeah, so to make the financial statements a little easier to digest, because I know they are dry, black and white. I've done a comparative analysis, so I've taken all the data that you'll find in this report is an exact replica from your financials.
I must admit, when we developed our new municipal office, the former presentations of our financial statements was in our minds because it was always so small. I couldn't really see the data. So when we were planning our audio visual, that did inspire us.
That's on purpose, we don't want you to look too closely. Well, it's true, they are small and cram a lot of information on one page.
Okay.
And the table of contents on the next page. And then if you go to our independent auditors report. So the independent auditors report, so we've audited the consolidated financial statements of the municipality. This comprises of municipal operations and the library operations. The statement of financial position, the statement of operations, also known as your statement of income, cumulative surplus, cash flows, change in net debt, and all the accounting stuff. So in our opinion, it presents fairly financial position of the municipality. So this is the clean audit. It's the highest level of audit opinion that you can get, and the report will be dated today, September 26th. I condensed 3 pages and 2 paragraphs. We have our statement of financial position. This is a snapshot at December 31st, 2021. So your cash and cash equivalents have gone down by approximately $200,000, $199,000. So there was effectively a larger increase in your accounts payable. But in your accounts receivable and in your account payable. Sorry, that's a typo in my address. So the accounts receivable, you have a large receivable for the medical center. So it's cash that you burned, you haven't received yet. And there's also a lot of progress payables, fullbacks for the municipal building and the public works. So the timing of when that cash comes in and out was resulted in a reduction of your cash balance at December 31st when we compare it to last year. Your taxes receivable, that's the money owing on property taxes, are fairly stable year over year. Although your tax base has, taxes have gone up and your receivables have stayed steady. That's a good thing. So effectively, you brought them down if you look at it percentage-wise. Your accounts receivable comprise an HST trade receivables, but there was also a receivable from the Northern Ontario Heritage Federation for the medical center, which was collected in 2023. We look at our liabilities, so funds that the municipality owes to others. The temporary borrowing last year, there was a short-term financing that was converted to long-term debt during the year. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities, $3,261,000. So an increase of $1.9 million. So there was just the holdbacks and the work in progress for the building and also the garage, the public works garage, resulted in higher payables this year. It's, again, it comes really down to timing of when the payments are made. The deferred revenues obligatory reserve fund is gas tax funds received but not fully utilized in 2022. Yeah, you received 309,000 in gas tax funds and you utilized 181,000. So it means you have 120,000 and there's some other minor items in there that can be carried forward to 2023 and beyond. Municipal debt, you have 6,033,000. So there was new debt issued for the office in 2022. That's the increase in municipal debt. The other liabilities are comparable to prior year. So that leaves you in a net debt position of 6,145,000. That meant like if you were to convert everything to cash, you'd be in a shortfall position of 6.4 million. But your long-term debt is going to be paid over like a number of years. So it's not, if you take that out of your financial position is okay. If we look at tangible capital assets, 28,992,000. So that's an increase of 6.8 million from prior year. So there was additions of 8.8 million and amortized disposals of 780,000 and amortization of 1.2 million. So the major additions this year included the medical center, the municipal building, resurfacing of Lake Nosbonsing Road, Lakeway Road, and Durland. Those were some of the major projects that you did that we say they're going to have a useful life of more than 1 year, so you put them on the balance sheet. And we have our amortization. Now, because there was when you had the fire at the public works garage, there's a lot of items that were destroyed in the fire. Now, from an accounting perspective, they still had an accounting value assigned to them, so we have to write them off. So that's why you have disposals of 780,000. So we disposed of all the old goods from an accounting perspective, and we added all the build and the equipment that was inside of it. So it leaves you with an accumulated surplus of 23,114,000. Now, a little bit later in the presentation, I'll show you how that ties into your reserves. Because that surplus includes your capital assets. So we'll talk about your reserves as I get a 2 pages down.
2022 was a major year for change and additions and a fire and everything. There was a lot to be accounted for in the statement.
So if we can go to the next slide. Statement of operations. So this is the results from January 1st to December 31st, 2022. So from a taxation perspective, it was a little bit higher than budgeted. Supplementaries and mix, those come in, there is a certain amount of budget for them, but you're not really getting this information from impact or the budget, but you are a little bit over. User charges, 840,000. So $101,000 higher than budgeted. The building permit fees were higher than expected this year. And also we did, the Seniors Active Living Center hadn't updated their accounting for a few years. So this year, all the revenues and expenses from the Seniors Active Living was consolidated into your records, which resulted in an increase in your user charges. The government grants and transfers. Sorry, your user charges are higher because of the building permit fee. Sorry. The government grants and transfers of 1,020,000 or approximately 70,000 higher than budget, and that was due to the adjustment for the Seniors Active Living Center. Otherwise, they were comparable, your grants were comparable to what you budgeted. And then we have other revenues, which is all the miscellaneous revenues and different sources, other user charges that the municipality has. For 2,094,000, which is 1,700,000 above budget. So these were the insurance proceeds. The municipality received insurance proceeds from the fire, and the way it gets from an accounting perspective, it gets brought in as revenue. That's why there's such a variance compared to what was budgeted. So total revenue is 10,080,000. Look at the expense side of it. You have the general government 1,653,000. It's approximately 116,000 more than budgeted. It was the consulting costs, actual consulting costs for St. Teresa were higher than budgeted.
Do you have the specific figure just on that one? Because that would be an accumulation of a few things, Jess?
Yeah, it's most, I don't have the specifics of the matrix,
Oh, that's okay.
but it was a large chunk of that. For 60,000, 70,000, and that was.
But it's lower than last time.
Much lower than, in terms of Saint Teresa, yes, much lower than last year, slightly higher than the budget. And I think you're still in a phase where you have that agreement, but not, what are the costs gonna stabilize?
I can say though that when the switch went from our consultant to the school board's
Yeah.
consultants, which was great for everyone, we're only 20% of the cost. What was provided as an estimate of what it was gonna be on an annual going forward, the school board is not recognized. with consultants. Because our 20% is a little more than what I expected it to be, which means their 80% is larger, right? So then
15%.
it's an 80-20 split. They cover 80%, we cover 20. So when I was first given a figure from their consultant to the school board, they've not been able to keep it under that figure. But in the end, we're still paying 20%. I get copies of every invoice, payments, all of that, but I was surprised by it. I would say it's still lower than what we were paying with our consultants, obviously. We know what that figure was. So that's this.
I'm gonna say like 75, like based on what I wanted to bring your attention, if it was like items with less 10, 20,000, I would, so this is the bulk.
Yeah.
Why I would say Teresa, you would have been, your general government budget would have been, actually would have been comparable.
Yeah. Antoine's working with their consultants and through everyone to reduce reporting requirements through the ministry. So the ministry's got to feel warm and fuzzy about saying, okay, we can stop monitoring a few sections. When you do that and you remove that, you start reducing lab costs and monitoring costs and consulting costs, right? So we're hopeful next spring when we do another annual. We've been talking about getting rid of the trailer in the Cenotaph Park, the black one, which means the skimmer is gone and stuff. So we're hopeful over time because it goes down for everybody, right? So.
Look at the transportation services line, 2,412,000. It was 128,000 higher than budgeted. So the fuel expenses of just surpassing everyone's expectations, and this is common. I'm seeing this everywhere. For fuel expenses have just gone up more than budgeted, more than expected, and also the sand and salt costs were higher than expected this year. It all kind of the recreational and cultural services. 1,400,000 above budget. I mentioned on the grant side that we had to do an adjustment for the seniors active living. We also had an adjustment on the expense. So the adjustment on the expense side was a little higher than the grants, being that the province funds a portion of their expenses, and then the municipality also has to take in a portion. So the adjustment was higher on the expense side than on the grant side, and it comprised of multiple years. So it's not a $30,000 hit all at once. It's over a 3-year period. So your annual surplus was 1,066,000. You had expected from an accounting, we adjusted your budget conform with the accounting standard, we expected a $609,000. So really that flip, that surplus was related to the insurance proceeds that weren't budgeted in.
Yeah.
I know when your records are budgeted, but the way we do the accounting, get creative sometimes, right? That's why you have a budget surplus. Now we look at government grants and transfers. So these, you have 2,090,000. It was 1,244,000 less than budgeted. So that you received a grant from the medical center that wasn't budgeted. So that put us above budget. Then there was 2 projects, the playground and the dome funding that you budgeted to do the project or for funding that wasn't received.
Yeah,
So the net was a decrease.
those projects were moved to 2023.
So what you're seeing here, this government grants and transfer, those items have all been kind of, the expenses underlying them are considered to be capital losses. So we distinguish. So your surplus for the year was 3,157,000. Look on the next page, it's just another way of showing your operating expenses. So I divided it by each segment on the main statement, and we have a schedule that shows the breakdown between salaries, benefits, materials, transfers. So they're again your actual expenditure is very comparable to budget. It's your material contracted services that were overall $364,000 over budget, and that related to the St. Teresa, the salt, the fuel adjustments, seniors. salaries and benefits comparable to budget, transfers to your other organizations such as East Side Health Unit, Castle Home, all comparable to the budget. This is where it gets fun. I'm gonna try to. The municipality budget's zero, right? That's how you want to finish every year. And then we take our accounting and we switch it to be in compliance with the public accounting standards. So how did we get from a zero budget to a municipal surplus? So when you borrow money, it actually increases your surplus, because now you're paying out over a period of time instead of having to pay it all at once. So you incur the expenses today and you pay it back over a period of time. We buy capital assets, we amortize. The big one, you'll see a line called contributions from general surplus. So over the years, typically your money with any surpluses or deficits would go into reserves or come out. Because you've been in a flux of construction over the past couple of years, because the municipal office had been in the works, kind of left that general deficit line. So you went into a general deficit knowing that you were going to get grants or you were going to get a debt, you were going to get debt. So we didn't take money out of reserves, we just drew it into a general deficit. So this year, you actually reduced your general surplus. So the actual reserve number that I'll show you on the next page shows that the reserve only went up by 75,000. But in effect, if you look at it together, your general surplus. So think about if your surplus goes up, it's helping your reserves. It'll be, I think, a little clearer on the next page.
Yeah.
So these are your reserves. Notable changes here was the municipal office was built. So you took that money out of the municipal office reserve. And then because we had surpluses, we put it into the sustainable capital stabilization reserve. The active transportation reserve, we added an additional 25,000 to that reserve. And the fire marquee, it was money 24,199 set aside for the fire marquee reserve. And the per plan dedication, that's a statutory amount that you have to collect on development, and that gets set aside.
If I can, just a couple things here. So for council's information, the movement from the municipal office to the capital, the reason we put it in that one is it's the only other real capital account to put it in, and it was set aside for a capital project. The active transportation addition of 25,000 was budgeted for, so that's why we did that. Fire marquee, the 24,199. That's how much we've collected from fire marquee since the day we signed an agreement at the end of 2022. So we brought in about $25,000
That's good.
utilizing that. Now you got to remember, I think, don't quote me on it, I think we pull in 70% and they keep 30 or something like that. Is the split, but that's what we've gotten so far. So it's now going to be kept in the reserve for the day we need to buy fire equipment and we don't have money in the budget. We can pull from a reserve, but that's all money at the end of 2022. I believe maybe a check or two has come in staff in 2023, so the number is higher. Yeah. Yeah,
Like, I like that one.
so we've only got about $1 million to go to buy a truck. So those are the changes, council.
So,
You'll see a lot of the reserve balances didn't change from one year to the next, like the first few.
so your reserves went up $77,000. Now, we have a general deficit in operations.
Oh, sorry, Jess.
Which
Are you done?
for that slide, you know what, is it easy to pull up the financials?
Yes.
Go to page 18 or 13, or maybe really it'll be easier to.
Which page, Jess?
Should be page 18, maybe 20.
18.
General 13.
That's it?
Yeah, so you see your total reserve for 1.2 million. Now, as I mentioned, we had 23 million in an accumulated surplus. That's comprised of a lot of things. Part of it is your capital assets, and then your municipal debt. Well, that comes as a negative, so you're going to collect that through taxation over the life of the debt term. But you'll see a general surplus. We're in a deficit position right now of 767,000. That will be cleaned out. I'm anticipating by the end of 2020.
At the end of 2023.
But that.
Correct. Well, we dealt with the medical center, the garage is 2023.
Rather than transferring in out of reserves, we left it as an operating deficit. So you'll notice the deficit is reduced from 1.3 million to 767,000. So that in my mind is just pure reserve. It's money that you've reduced and that would have went to reserves. If you were to take the total reserves minus last year's general deficit, you actually were only left with true reserves of 77,000. And this year you're left with true reserves of 730,000. The other reason we present it this way as well is when I show you the benchmarking, the municipality, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing benchmark. So if we had thrown that through reserves, your reserves would almost be in the tank. Like it'd be at zero. You would not look fiscally responsible.
But
We
then-
want to have some reserves, but not too many. Like there's kind of that slopes. And if you're not, so that would be a strategic reason for leaving it as a general operating deficit. But as I believe it will be cleared out by the end of this year. Is that,
Done with this one, Jess?
yeah,
Okay.
I was, sometimes in my accounting brain, but explaining it, so. So we go into, these are, I've selected, there's 12 different ratios that the ministry evaluates you on every year and actually
Yeah.
provide the report.
It's also based on 2021 though, because FIRs for 2022 aren't all available.
Right, yeah. So what I've done for municipality, so we've taken 5 that I think are of interest to council.
Is our data based, is our data 2022?
Yes.
Ours compared to other municipalities 2021.
Yeah, so on the left-hand side is East Ferris data for
Over
the.
the 5 years.
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah,
So I have 2022 data for the municipality.
Okay,
On the right-hand side, that's 2021 data for the whole group.
Yeah.
got it. Okay.
So in comparison, 21 data. And then I'm showing you your.
Yeah, so what it basically says for 2022, 6.2.
Yeah.
6.2% of our taxes that year end were not collected, basically.
Which is a slight reduction. Actually, you'll see it's positively moved now. Anything less than 10% is considered low risk. So you can see on this slide that.
For council's info, some of that's driven by a pandemic where we weren't aggressive to collect on tax arrears considering people were not working. They had other financial, I guess, things to consider. You'll see for 2023, I believe that figure will be lower. We'll be back into the 5 range, I would suspect, so. Compared to other municipalities.
Yeah, and you want to make it reading, that's.
Municipal affairs considers you, if you're 10% or lower, to be low risk. After that, you're moderate. So.
If you're higher risk of collection problems, impacts your tax.
IO also looks at it, what you have left at your year and why you're not collecting.
Total reserve ratio, so you are fairly steady, it's down a tiny tick this year, it's your reserves divided by your total operating expenses, so our reserves went up, but so did operating expenses.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's a few council members around the table. I can remember Brian Roger days and discussions. This has always been. We need more reserves or build up our reserves. It's over, you know. Yep.
it's a fine line. You wanna, you're moderate risk and you wanna be above 20, like, but how much reserve do you have? When you're applying for funding, it's always, if you have too much reserve, they'll say use them up. If you don't have enough, well, are you really spending?
Well, one of the problems, we always had a problem getting government grants because we had too much reserves.
So it's,
They kept saying you don't need help because of reserves. We had to spend money.
And your taxes are low, so.
Exactly. And that was the other thing.
You got to
Well,
go and get a tax.
yeah. And then increase the taxes and borrow more.
Yeah.
Like.
it's strange.
Would be fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
You're penalized, you said you're penalized for being fiscally responsible. So you want,
Well, the percentages of, that's what's our debt, borrowing debt capacity? Like we used to be sitting there pretty low.
We still are.
We still are, and we're talking in the teen%, like 15 to 20%. I believe we're even less. I know some other municipalities are sitting up at 90%, their debt capacity is pretty low.
We're not close to that at all. If I had to throw numbers, Jess, what's our ARL 1.7 million?
Oh, God, yeah, you guys.
And I think we pay back about 500,000 a year in payments. So we've got a spread of over $1 million, which means we could take on a loan right now with payments of $1 million a year, and we can take it on
That's because.
based on the ministry.
That's because.
Yep.
Brings us to the next slide. Yeah. We have a debt servicing ratio. Oh, did I slide, did I go past one or did I?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, I was like, bring it to our debt service ratio. So the ministry looks like anything, so when we look at your payments, that's your principal and your capital plus your interest divided by your total revenues. You want to ideally have less than 5%. And you've consistently, I mean, you've been higher, for the past 6 years, you've always been under 5%. So it's not a total, it's just your debt payments. You're comfortably in the low range. You'll notice some of these problems are higher.
Yeah.
Which increases the risk, and they may have to pack more and are able to pay down their debt or service their debt. Then we have the asset to income ratio. This is the total cost, I'm gonna say the total accounting cost, okay, not total accounting cost of your assets divided by what's been amortized. So this year it went down. It was slowly increasing, but it went down because of all the new assets, like the new equipment, the municipal office, the medical center. And because we took it, we disposed of the assets in the garage itself, and we replaced it with quote unquote new assets, it brought down your ratio. I'm not sure how much the ministry is gonna look at it, like 50% is kind of that number, because now they're using your asset management plans to fund some of the grants.
OCIF, I told what I thought about that one, constitution, so, yeah.
I have thoughts on it as well.
Yeah. My issue with it is they're gonna tie OCIF funding now to your asset management plans. The issue I have with that is we've got a gas tax that gives us 308,000 a year. It's based on a per capita or population or some of the, and it's permanent fund that you know what you're getting. There's a schedule for the next 10 years of what you're getting, right? Then OCIF, it's like, oh, well, what are we getting this year? What are we gonna get next year? It's now in limbo, right? So it doesn't feel like it's a given anymore, like it has been in other years. And it's our only source of funding from the province for capital that's been, over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
And we could plan on getting it every year.
Yeah, so instead of just saying, you know what, we've got $100 million to give to municipalities for OCIF, and we're going to divide it by a fair formula that's based on population and everybody got their fair share. Now they're starting to play again, it seems. So anyway.
So you participated last week in a consultation.
Yeah.
With a few.
It was about asset management plans.
Yeah.
Legislation that comes due, well, that's set for next year. But then they started talking about the OCIF piece, right? So Antoine and I participated in it. Kind of told everything about it.
I reviewed some, because these are accounting numbers.
Yeah,
From 2012 on, they're solid. Like, we know what you spent. Up until 2011, it was one big, we had to say, well, we think your assets are worth this much. Well, actually, you didn't have, like, we trying to base it on what the current costs are. But it would never cost you to replace, as you know. Today, to replace that will not cost you what you have in your books, right? We know that.
it'd be more.
Cost of increase. So that's, in my opinion, representative of the real financial picture. And then the asset management fund, all 444 municipalities are there with different engineers. What's the value? What's the cost to replace that?
Yeah.
Kilometer road, right? So again, you're using.
What's the life of a road here compared to Southern Ontario?
But again, in my opinion, it's not.
So many different lenses.
Yeah,
The discussion we had as well was, okay, if we know that now, why won't we beef up our figures in our asset management plan to say, oh, this building would cost 5 million to rebuy, it'd be $10 million. Now there's a sense of, let's really beef up our figures to get more OCIF. You can't have that when you're got 400 and some municipalities. Like, it really doesn't make sense that they've gone that route, but
year to year, you don't know what you're gonna get. It's
yeah,
harder to find.
Here you said 400 and some, she's saying 444.
Well,
444 municipalities.
Also, the other, meeting, I think it's only 443. Amo was
A
440.
lot of people say 443 because the city of Toronto does not follow the same municipal act as everybody else. They have-
Because of Toronto Act.
Because they keep
Yeah.
losing one municipality.
No, it's 444. But Toronto's got the Toronto Municipal Act or Toronto City Act, whatever it be.
Whatever it is, yep.
Yeah, so.
And then your operating surplus ratio, so this is your annual surplus divided by your main fund, so it strips out rents. And so it includes taxes, and fees and other revenues.
Yeah.
So you're not, anything, a 1% deficit is acceptable, it is within rate, anything below that, we're getting into higher. Especially in
Boy, I would want to be in the children.
It's not acceptable in East Ferris though.
well, I'm saying.
It's like 2019 at 0.48.
That was. But you could be encouraged consistently that been in an operating, but being fiscally responsible. And managing budgets. And then this is just a slide that we added and here, this is expenses per employee, so we take the total expenses of the municipality. We divide it by the number of employees, so your employee count will stay stable, so for every employee that you have, you're spending $300,000, so you're getting more bang for your buck. You're doing more with that, you're doing more with us.
The last two columns like 2022 versus 2021. East Ferris.
So the blue one is 2022, and then the green or the olive green is your 2021 figures, so we didn't have public data for the other.
But that's even impressive. See, we've gone from 204,000 to 300,000.
Yes,
We're doing much more,
with less. The bigger the number,
the better.
the better. Something for council to look at as well as that these employees include the library. Because they're consolidated. Well, we got 4 people there,
Mhm.
part-timers. One works 6 hours a week. Numbers are somewhat
Misleading, yeah.
in a way because we have to account for full-time, part-time, seasonal on our FIR. So if we had summer students, the more summer students you get, the more employees you have, the more it kind of breaks down. Because I was somewhat surprised with Calendar because I don't believe Calendar was higher than us in the past, and all of a sudden they are, right? So, but it all depends on your employee breakdown, so. I mean, I think overall, when you look at it, it's an impressive number, whether it's off a tad or not, right?
But you're the second, for 2021, you're the second highest.
Providing more services.
Yes. Output.
Yeah.
That's the other
Or
part.
output based on total costs.
So that's my presentation. If there's any questions on this or the financial statements. That's it.
Let's go.
You like this format? Is that how digest the financial?
Can we get it? Is that-
Jason?
Yes.
Okay.
I try, it's always a challenge. Sometimes I get in my accountant brain or my auditor brain, I'm like, how can I explain it to the general public, right? In a way that you understand. I can get all nerdy, right? Or all. Everyone to understand and get passionate about this as I am.
But there being no.
And then one thing, just, you know what, kudos to our,
Name.
Yeah.
to our CAO too, right? So congratulations, good work.
Thanks. I got good staff too.
Yes, yes, staff is awesome. Great. Yeah, yeah.
You couldn't be here today without. Jason. Stop.
Yeah.
We work well every year. I mean, we get it done, right?
Oh, I think we work well.
Yeah.
No bruises yet.
We're set up now for interim audit in
Yeah.
January,
Yeah.
I believe the second week. And our final audit, we've moved it up to, I think, to April. Is what our plan is right now. The library is separate, the OPP lease is separate as well with the library, I believe. So we're looking around, everything up by the end of April for 2024, much sooner.
That's excellent.
Yeah. We're starting, but it's a
Oh,
really.
yeah, correct.
That's always a better than-
Same, thanks. We've got a resolution.
Right.
And you can note that and
You need a sign and I'll.
We'll get it.
I'll bring it to my admin and she'll send you a final.
the other signed documents I've already put on the portal. There's only one tonight that the mayor and deputy mayor have signed that you can actually leave with the original. I don't need it.
It's all, I'll give that to her. She'll.
Yeah.
It's already quiet, so we're just waiting for our one signature.
Because that's, it's put it in the statements anyway, so you can have the original, I don't need it.
Yeah, and I'll just wait for you, yes.
Yes. Well, one of the statements will follow, yeah, our statements will go.
I get a mover and a seconder, please, Counselor Champagne and Counselor Kelly. That the corporation of municipality of East Ferris financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2022 be accepted as prepared and presented by Victor Tilly, S&P LLP municipal auditors.
On favor? Yeah, thank you so much. We thank you very much, Madame Dion, for this brief presentation. We look forward to our next meeting.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks, Gus.
Apologies for my lateness. Thank you, Jason, for.
Well, that's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gus.
I think the lights have been lowered. Is that-
Yeah, we did.
Yes, yeah,
Did you get it, Justin?
yep,
I guess I have one question.
sure.
Right, operating surplus ratio. You said 2019 was 0.48. It's now 32. And what is your, like, what do we need to do?
Anything above zero
Okay,
means
is,
we're in a surplus position.
okay,
If you look at the 2 prior years, we were deficit, which means we were at a loss.
right, okay,
So those are years that have to be covered by reserves, whether council likes it or not. We have the municipal act states that if you have a deficit this year, you have to fund it next year. And budget.
Mhm.
So if you have a $300,000 loss, you automatically start your next budget season at $300,000 loss. Divide that by 60,000, you're starting off at 5%.
Hmm.
Or you end your year by covering with reserves. We always close out our year that way. We don't start our next budget season off with a deficit. So we always say we're gonna cover with reserves. If you don't have reserves, so then you're starting off the next year with a deficit start, right? So it's always nice to have a surplus, especially like banks look at that. Infrastructure Ontario certainly looks at that. Because what they're trying to say is, if you budget $10 million in revenue, you always have to have a balanced budget as well. So if you balance 10 million revenue, you have 10 million in expenses. If you get to zero, Infrastructure Ontario still doesn't like that. Because it looks kind of risky. So they always want you to have a surplus, even though you can't budget for a surplus. That's the tricky part with IO, right? So that's why you try to be as conservative as you can to ensure you got that little bit of surplus, right? So we've had 5 consecutive years of surplus. Some of them are bigger, like we had the fire. So we brought in more money than what that was on the books for. So that helps a lot there. If nothing else happens in the year, you should have a major surplus, right? Kind of thing, so. Yeah.
thank you.
Good job.
There being no further questions, we move to committee reports. Public Works and Infrastructure, you met today. Okay, yes, so there will be actual minutes coming. You want to provide a copy? That's a complaint?
Get some more information. There's a study and we've got a copy of it. So they have a chance to look at it and we'll have a report by the next meeting.
At the next meeting, there'll be the recommendation from the committee to accept this. And there'll be a resolution, but it's a hard copy versus scanning over 150 pages digitally.
Yeah. We'll see physically. One other item we did talk about quickly was digital signs. We had a quick look at the data. One's going to bring a report back and get a report also to the MVP showing the speed limits exceed what they're supposed to be and what days and hours and time and stuff. So that's going to turn into MVP, hopefully get that straightened out in a few places. And we also looked at the speed limit for Deerland Road. So that'll be coming to the next meeting for a motion. So we get some feedback. 51% or 56, no, sorry, 70% of the people agree with it. It wasn't a great amount, there's already some people that responded, or we got something out there.
And it's 60 to 50
And 60
for Durland.
Yeah.
50 to 40 for Eglinton.
60 to 50. Sorry.
Good, that's good.
I can hear my phone. And then when we talk about the free dump date, we'll have more discussion. Guys feel about it. It's just that we're getting a whole bunch of people on one day, we're debating, should we do it 2 days, should we have a municipality, just food for thought. Because it's a lot of people that come in there, are down 300 people in one day, so it's just getting too much all at once. And it's too much for the staff to handle, exactly, Margaret, some people come back twice. So we're throwing things around like, half municipality, one, and the other half next time. How you monitor that? There's a few things we looked at as far as bids on site for cardboard and stuff like that, so we're on time getting some pricing together for budget for next year.
Yeah.
That was a strat plan item. I'm also. And sure, forgetting about things on the phone.
Goods exchange day,
Pardon me?
goods exchange day.
I'll speak about that.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that before the free dump day is having a day where you could put your items out on the side of the road and people could go around and pick things up. So we're trying to look at waste diversion, right? So, because.
Reuse.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, I think we looked at over maybe the 4th or something, first week.
First Saturday in May.
But it's, they probably talked about that, as I was on, Road today, and the whole Booth Road had stuff at the driveways. And it's just a 1 day, it has to be up like, I would, don't sooner than 8 o'clock, it has to be up by 5 o'clock that day. So then the following week, we have our next 2 weeks, we have a dump day. I think it eliminates, people just throw it away, or put it in the road, people may take it, and they take it home. Or some guy might just want to take them all out on yard sale, well, it's. You think about getting less to the dump as much as. Real.
North Bay does a day or two a year of goods exchange day. Calendar started doing it as well.
I experienced it in Southern Ontario and it was really big.
Yeah.
Stony Creek, Hamilton, huge. And the thing is, most people don't know or are not, they don't want to put it out there on social media and have 20 people show up for the same item. Or they don't know how to present it. They put out too much, worry about too much private information. This way it's at the end of your driveway, people come driving by, they pick it up, they could use it. And I mean, we've all thrown away things that are useful to someone. Doesn't matter because we do it anyway.
Yeah, the committee's thoughts were if it happens before dump day, people will grab something like, if not, it's going to the landfill, right? If you're not gonna put it in your driveway and someone takes it, it's going to the landfill. So there's an opportunity to divert from the landfill, like Councilor Champagne said.
It's a win-win, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You get to help people out. I mean, they can come in if they're up against it somehow, or if they're not sure.
Yeah.
It can be used.
Yeah, you'll see in the minutes at the next meeting, because what we need to know is whether you want 1 or 2 goods exchange days, what day we're gonna do free dump day, or if we're gonna have one, because we're producing the calendar, the annual calendar.
Oh,
Gotta
yes.
put that in there. Our goal this year is to have the calendars printed and in our office by the end of November. They go out the first week of December. We're always kind of scrambling at Christmas break to get them out. We don't need the extra stress or last minute kind of, and we're designing the calendar in-house this year.
Good.
So we're kind of ready for those key dates.
So all this information will be coming before the next meeting. It's like the culvert study. It's pretty lengthy. We didn't go through it today because Antoine, he'll break it down for us, but it's a pretty lengthy document that we paid for it to get that done.
Yeah.
So it'll be important for us, and I think that was, is there something else?
There's one thing, because we were talking, you talked about the asset management plan.
Yeah.
That it's. The due date is July 2024.
Yes.
And that hasn't changed through the pandemic and.
Yeah.
With resource access, like.
I can speak to it if you want,
Yeah,
Deputy
yeah.
Mayor. Part of last week's consultation on asset management plan was there's legislation for asset management plan, OREG 58817. So at a certain year, we had to have our core assets in an asset management plan. We met that date. Core assets was roads, bridges, wastewater, stormwater infrastructure, anything underground, which we don't have, right? So that was the first. July 1st, 2024, next year, we have to have all other assets. So buildings, outbuildings, playgrounds, sheds, you name it. In that. The issue with it is they came out with that legislation and set the dates, and it was happened either pre-pandemic or during. Well, a lot of municipalities are saying, like, we set everything aside during pandemic, even capital projects, to deal with the pandemic. We didn't have people working. Those dates haven't changed. You're still expecting us, and this is what we told them last week, you're still expecting us to have full plans by next summer, when there's still some that are dealing with coming out of the pandemic, right? they can't hire staff or they're short staff. So what we've asked the consultation last week was, you need to provide us money to start. Like, at first it came out with funding as well. There wasn't a lot of money. We hired consultants and it wasn't 100% covered. These are living documents that change constantly. There's got to be a constant supply of funding to keep the asset management plans up to date, right? So that was one.
Comes at a cost, it comes at a big cost.
It's a big cost because some municipalities hired asset management plan managers and staff just for that. Well, we can't afford that. So one of the, as always said, which you should have done, provinces, any municipality under 5,000 or 10,000, this is the software you use. The province bought it. There's no customization. Everybody's using the same, put all your information in it. It spits out data. Not a big fluffy report that says that East Ferris is 20 kilometers from North Bay and all of that. What's the data? What's our deficit? It would have forced everybody. And then when you compare asset management plans, that data looks the same across the board. Now, City of Toronto, with all their billions of dollars of budget, wants a custom software, go ahead. But what they've done now is they have 444 asset management plans that don't look the same. And I don't know how they're analyzing all of it and comparing, but it's a mess. So everybody agreed last week when I brought that up that, yeah, that would have been the best way to go, because we're all trying to figure out, what do you put in your plan? What do you leave out? How do you deal with the risks? Because you have to discuss risks, you have to discuss service levels. So anyway, we were hopeful that they heard enough last week, but also extend the deadline and maybe come back to providing some money. Because we brought up our road study, we brought up our culvert study, we had grant monies. Some municipalities don't have that. How are they gonna get a road study done for $25,000, $30,000, $50,000? Well, right away, their asset management plan, it's got, if the data's not good, it's garbage, your plan. You have to have the data you need, right?
If the province had a data system that was 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, it'd be easy because we just enter it and we apply for funding and they just look at it and say, yeah, you can get it.
Yeah.
Like right now, like always hat in hand say, yeah, we can do it. And if you know your minister really well, you might get it. If you don't know your minister very well, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be like that. It should be even keel across the table.
The consultation was, I forget how many municipalities were invited to it. Well, it was the parliamentary assistant minister of infrastructure, I forget their name. But and staff like from the ministry. So yeah, I mean, good comments were put out there. Hopefully we'll see some change. You can see from the legislation, they do split. I think it's 50,000 population and less and 50 or above. So they've made some little exceptions. To be not enough. You can't compare us to 50,000 population. Like you've got to have a lower standard, I guess I would say, in terms of asset management. And most municipalities, we've talked about this in the past, everyone's got massive infrastructure deficits, no money to actually come afloat. So what are we proving with these plans? To us, we budget every year, we do what's priority and we move on. If that deficit's 5 million, 10 million, whatever, we're not gonna put 10 million on a taxpayer and bring everything up to speed. So really, what are we getting from it, right?
And I kind of just said a story. Same years as council, then you know how much to spend on your road. You know what you're gonna spend next year, the year after. It's good physical, it's being prudent on how you run your municipality or the province. We just don't know that. We get the gas tax, we don't get the gas tax. We get another grant, we don't get another.
Yeah. I'm not sure they liked it too much. I questioned when they were gonna get an asset management plan for the province, but I didn't get an answer. Because we're all legislative, we're creatures of the province, but they don't have their own asset management plan. I don't know, you should lead by examples, but.
Anyway.
I think it's very good that you participated in that consultation because I find our municipal staff very knowledgeable. And I think it's important that you provide those comments that you did and it's well done. Yes,
So I was just wondering about putting in a resolution that would sort of support what was said. So I'm not sure if that, or a delegation at Roma to.
yes,
They will
yes.
next year.
I like the Roma idea.
Yeah.
That's a very good one. Yeah.
Roma's not open yet for delegations. We've got no info about that. I mean, the resolution is easy to do as well. That could be supported by the municipalities.
So I think there's support for that idea.
Next meeting.
One thing with the delegation is if we go on our own and say something that might say, It's one municipality. When we get support through a resolution.
Yeah.
And they hear from a volume, then I think they see there's an issue like, oh, we've got quite a bit of people saying they want funding or extensions or. They've even asked us, what kind of clarity can we provide in the legislation? And I read a couple lines, so it said, what does this mean to you? It means something different to you than it does to me, than it does to Antoine. But there's no further guide to that legislation, so everyone reads it and takes something different from it, right? So.
So there's a direction, I guess, to prepare a resolution. Would you be in support of that? Okay.
Bring up. And so basically that's it. Again, you'll get the report from our
We're still on public.
yeah, so public works.
That's a good.
We're on Wednesday.
Exactly.
So, thank you so much. There was no community emergency management committee. And so we moved to Fire and Emergency Services Committee. There was none for this session, although tonight we are going to have, we need to boogie on. We have a full agenda remaining. Planning Advisory Committee,
Just one on planning, and that was concerning the lot across the street. And the recommendation from the planning committee was to have it accept the fact that they want to get it rezoned from residential to commercial. And I know Greg's not here. Oh, there he is. Sorry, pardon me. It's just been, the thing is, it's been said by the province that they want and are recommending commercial zoning inside the hamlets, villages and so forth, which makes sense. Mr. Courtney agreed with that, correct? Right, so that's recommendation. So it comes up later on.
we have it.
Yep.
Perfect, okay. And are there any questions on that or comments? Wrong? Committee, yes, okay.
Over in a seconder, please. Kelly and Councilor Trahan. Whereas public input was received at the public meeting, the Planning Advisory Committee meeting held September 20th, 2023. For file number C 2023-04. Lands described as Plan M498 Lot 7, parcel 14057 on what is locally known as Purville Road, Typer Road, and Meadow Drive. And whereas the land owners applied to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2021-60 to rezone a parcel of land from the existing hamlet residential zoning to general commercial zone. And whereas the application is consistent with provincial policy statement 2020. And whereas the application is in conformity with the policies contained within the official plan for the municipality. Be hereby resolved that council approves the recommendation for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting held September 20th, 2023 under resolution number 2023-33.
Favorites? Well, Carrie, thank you so much. Committee of Adjustment, the minutes are there. If there are no questions. Recreation, Parks and Culture, that we meet in October in a few weeks. Economic Development Committee, October, starting to be a process, not library board. In there,
Yeah, so this summer, the library and their staff talking about, staff punching above their weight, right, in East Fairs. They had 92 programs with 678 participants in their program.
Good job.
Yeah, so the staff have been working really hard to service and provide good programming for East Ferris. Strat plan, we're in development right now. And we're also meeting with Pessy and Associates about the pay equity review so that the board has all the information about that as well. So
what was the number again? 92?
92 programs with 678 participants.
Very good.
Yeah.
So thank you. There being any comments or questions? There being none, we'll move to Police Services Board. Just a few comments there to make. I just wanted to highlight 3 items. The first one, we also reviewed, there was a presentation by our engineer on the digital speed data It was turned over to the police services, to the Ontario Provincial Police, who were present. As you may have noted, there was 3 representatives from the Ontario Provincial Police, and so they're going to analyze the data, and they're going to come back with some ideas for potentially on those roads. And they as well, there was a discussion about additional items of information that they want to share with our engineer. So there's data that's going to be coming so that we can pursue discussions on speed enforcement. So that was number 1. Is it going to be an actual presentation by our engineer of this data at council, or is it going to come through officially?
Yeah, that's it.
You had it today. Yeah.
We looked at data today at
So
Public
this,
Works.
yeah, okay. And so it'll come through in a discussion for the line meetings, or in the 2 weeks ago. The next item is safety initiative for local schools. As we know, we had purchased wristbands, and this is going to be an actual presentation in the schools, both schools, planned before Halloween. So these wristbands are, kids can wear them in public setting. So that's something that's being organized with our children, and as well Constable Muirhead, as well as our representatives on our police services board. They'll be going to the schools and promoting as well safety and being a police officer as a career opportunity. We come to a quarterly report. I just want to draw your attention to a few things. So basically, the quarterly report is what at every quarter we receive from the Ontario Provincial Police. So that's these sheets here, basically. And these are what we call our billing summary. This is what they bill us for. And so if we quickly look at the categories, the first category, if you see on the left of that, you'll see violent criminal code. So you'll see here from January to September 2023 compared to 2022. So basically, we see that total calls related to criminal code events or incidents were down from last year from 21 to 14. Then we go into the next section and we come to property crime violations, and there it goes on to the other page. And so we see here as well, there's been a reduction overall in that particular category. Although the OPP did draw our attention to one item, which is fraud. They are concerned. I think it's everyone knows pretty well about the incidents of fraud that are being incurred and increasing. So they would like to do an activity in East Ferris where there would be an actual seminar, and they propose at our trade show. They're familiar with our trade show, and they suggested that it could also be a trade show that's tied, that could provide information to our businesses. So have that component as well as for citizens. And so they thought maybe a trade show in the afternoon upstairs, it could be, and they would oversee organizing it. So that was something that they put forward as an idea. So I think we've written to officially to those that are responsible for the trade show to put that forward for consideration.
I just thought, I know from the exercise class for seniors, if they could attend one of the plus 50 meetings, because a lot of people are vulnerable, they're on their own. We were taught, seniors are taught to respect phone calls. This is the Canadian Revenue Agency. This is the police calling. Here's what you have to do. And they are the most vulnerable, I think, for fraud. So,
it's an excellent point. There have been presentations before at Club Action.
Okay.
They were very highly attended.
Yep.
And I would say that was 2 years ago, the last one. So we're probably due. And that comment was made as well. So I think
Okay.
we'll move that.
well, in that case, at the trade show, if they had a handout of some kind to just tell people, Canadian Revenue Agency doesn't call you at home, demand money. Police don't call you at home demanding this, that. I mean, it's basically knowledge.
No, Councilor Kelly, I think the point's well made. I think we should not just wait we should have a separate activity for.
Because I know, there must be a list of seniors because they get targeted. It's just that simple.
The last time we had the presentation, actually, Councilor Champagne's mother was present because she had been a volunteer that had worked with the Center for fraud, forget the proper.
Senior busters, I call it Ghostbusters, and she and my friend.
So we've had a couple, but we've had people that have actually worked at it on a volunteer basis, but it was informative for the community to see that we actually had citizens that were informative and volunteer work. And so I would highly recommend, I had attended, I thought it was very good, so I definitely will move that forward.
Yeah, you're definitely right. That's, it's a huge increase all over, coast to coast, with frauds. It's something that we should, you can stop. You know what I mean? I've spoke to, dealt with a lot of seniors, get it taken advantage of, right? And they lose thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's a huge, huge loss, and it, you know what, it affects the families, right? Of everybody. So it's very important to, you know, get that message out to the seniors and everything. So no, absolutely. That's good, man.
So that was one of the recommendations. If you come to the next page, we're into basically moving forward, we see the section there on drugs, one incident increase and statutes and acts, 14 to 8, operating. The one that we often spend a lot of time on is the calls related to operational issues. And basically here that goes into the next page. And here we went from 99 incidents down to 77. You'll recall I have raised this issue in past a few meetings ago at a few council meetings. I talked about my concern with domestic disturbances that are part of that category, as well as neighbor disputes, the family disputes. But I had said I had found that they had spiked during COVID. But basically, we had a good discussion at our this last services board on this issue. And I conveyed the fact that we had a discussion at council, but I said we had seen a decreasing number of calls, and they basically confirmed that, and they basically indicated as well that, to your point, Councillor Zahan, where you had said sometimes it could be related to 1 or 2 incidents where they get maybe 5 or 6 calls related to the same incident. And so basically it's something we monitored, but at this point, nothing necessarily, given the decreasing trend, nothing to necessarily be overly concerned with. It's not a pandemic and
Fair. I'm just looking on it. I don't see like anything for impaired driving.
So basically,
Did I miss that, or? Because we're coming into that season for, you know, I mean, there's gonna be programs and everything and it was just kind of interested to see. I know that the OPP does a great job in our municipality when it comes to the festive seasons for ride programs and all like that. It's I don't see
so that is as well part of our issue, to your point, where we don't necessarily get data specific for East Ferris. It's part of the overall detachment statistic. And that is one of our issues, to your point. This is for us, we continue to discuss this at Police Services Board. And again, this last meeting, how we want data specific for our community on issues related to motor vehicle incidents. So if you turn the page, actually, it's overall, most of our data, we see decreasing number of service calls. But if you turn the page, you come to the issues related overall to, in general, motor vehicle incidents. This is as specific as it gets for East Ferris, but this includes, as we know, Highway 17 and Highway 11. So that's what's not fair to us, because actually we have very few incidents, motor vehicle incidents in our community. Those that we have, they'll say, are related often to deer, citizens hitting a deer. Last time we had done a survey, you'll recall that we had more incidents on Lake Wisconsin Road because of incidents with deer. But anyway, we have continued to ask, and they have promised this time, by the way, that part of the what they will prepare for us is a map where they will show the incidents. And so that was part of our discussion. It was not a formal resolution, but it was part of the discussion, and they are preparing information for us. So basically that, but even there, when we look at overall, if you include Highway 17 and Highway 11, you see the number of incidents have reduced from 2022 to 2023, from 42 to 18. So that's basically the 3 items that I wanted to touch on.
I see the impaired one. Sorry,
Yeah.
I see it, yeah.
So that's where it is. So we will continue to have further discussion on this at our next meeting as we come through and road on that point. There being no further questions, we will move on to Castle Home, DSAT Health Unit, and the North Bay Manual Conservation Authority. I see tonight that we have a full report from the North Bay Manual Conservation Authority in our minutes, so we've got lots of information there. Any specific comments? There being none, we're moving on to departmental reports and resolutions, presentation by our fire chief on community risk assessment. So there's been a lot of work, so I'd like to give this the time that it deserves. So, Monsieur, I'd like to advance. Moneyball?
You got your clicker? I do. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to present the community risk assessment to everyone here. Everybody has a copy of it and had a chance to review it. So I put together a little bit of a PowerPoint, kind of hits on the key features. I'm not going to go through the whole document and read through it. There'll be a spot at the end if anybody has any questions through whatever I've said, or if someone has gone through it. So I'll just start off by saying we're mandated to have this done. Our deadline to have it done was for next year, I believe June of 2024. So we're way ahead of schedule, so that's great. Every municipality and every fire department is mandated to have the community risk assessment done. We had simplified risk assessment done in the past. These ones here are a little more, we had a little more information that we had to put in it, and we had certain criteria we had to meet. They didn't really say we had to follow the forms that they had, but they suggested keeping it very similar to what they provided with us. So I'll just go through some of that stuff. So what is the community risk assessment? Risk assessment is something that will allow fire departments to make informed decisions as well as council. A way of prioritizing, identifying, analyzing, evaluating risks to the public. A way to directly address and the identified risks and ensure that our levels of service match or come close to the risks that we have within the municipality. So our risk assessment is not a final document, it's more of a living document. We finished it today, we could change it tomorrow. It's something that we will review annually and does need to be updated every 5 years. So just kind of for your information.
Maybe 5 years that by the act? No.
Yes, yeah.
It's also done.
No, before it was just a simplified risk assessment. I'm not sure how it was presented. It was totally different from what this is. So,
But legislation's come out now that we have to have one and submit as well, right?
no, it doesn't have to be submitted.
Just have.
Presented to council and we have to have it. They ask, do you have it? We say yes. If they ask to see it, great, here it is.
We've had it in the past, but it was more, this is more formalized.
So who else does, it's just yourself that done this?
Yes, well, myself as well as other staff, we met with staff and the managers. And
Maybe explain a bit of the process, stuff so council's aware.
yeah, I can go through it a little bit.
Okay.
So, okay.
Sorry, it's been a while.
That's okay. So we've got 9 different profiles that we had to look at. And within each profile, we had to look at different criteria and identify the risks within the profiles. So some of the resources that we use to get our information is the 2021 census. Is the newest one that we had to work with. Our GIS system, resource management system, so FirePro that we have to get all our historical calls. Local municipal department, so we had a meeting, managers meeting with everybody, kind of went through this in the early stages to see if there was anything that they had initially that maybe we didn't think of.
A lot of this stuff is general knowledge from anyone around here. The more stuff we can put in it, the better it's gonna be. It's very, very vague when it comes to what they're actually looking for. They kind of give you a starting point, then it's up to you to go from there. Our risk assessment is gonna look from Bondfield to look different, calendars, Chisholm. Everybody has different risks in their municipality, right? So. So after we've identified the risk, we have to determine the probability levels. So this is where things change a little bit, and it'll change year to year. So and I'll give you an example with the public works garage burning last year. Well, now that puts everything up a notch. So instead of it being unlikely, maybe now it's a possible thing that would have happened, because we had one incident that happened in the past 5 years. So give it another 4 years, now that's gonna go down to an unlikely. So that's gonna change the probability levels of some of the risks. After that, we have to evaluate the consequence levels. We have 5 different consequence levels: insignificant, minor, moderate, major, or catastrophic. Again, it identifies how you're going to categorize these. We're kind of limited to what we can do in there. That's a lot of information on one page, but I think as you go through the risk assessment that you have, this might help to explain why certain things are in certain places. So keeping in mind as well that this is from the fire and rescue perspective, not emergency management.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line there, and it was very, very difficult to do some of these things because you want to go bigger, but it's not. We're trying to keep it a little bit more simplified.
But they do overlap.
They do, absolutely, yeah. So when you're looking through the risk assessment, as the risks are identified, there's also numbers attached to it. So this kind of outlines how the numbers play into it. So you can have a moderate risk that is rare but has a major consequence. It's only risked at 1,000. Whereas if you have something that's almost certain, but an insignificant consequence, it's rated at 10,000. Now these numbers are just a way of identifying it. They don't really mean anything. So once we've identified the risks, we kind of categorize them into different treatment options. So we have 4 different options: avoid it, accept it, mitigate it, or transfer it. Avoiding the risk would be to, I can't even really think of an example of avoiding the risk. That's very difficult to do. But if you had a fire in something, sprinkler it to the point where no fire could ever catch in there again, or build a building out of concrete so nothing burn it. That would be avoiding the risk. Accepting the risk would be something like having frequent power outages. It's something that we kind of have to accept. It's out of our control. We can't really do anything about it. That's not really from a fire perspective, but that's just kind of an example. Mitigate the risk is doing whatever we can to try to mitigate it, obviously. And transferring the risk would be, I guess, kind of going on the power outage thing, again, and kind of transfer it back to the power company. It's up to them to cut the trees down. Right.
On standby power.
One thing I have noticed is that we're getting a lot of new people moving in the municipality from cities and so forth. And if you look back, say about 40 years ago, you'll find very few farmhouses that had trees very close. Now we've got people with monstrous fir trees and all kinds of bush around them, very close to the dwellings. And if we ever get a bushfire and it gets going, there's going to be a lot of houses in danger because they're not isolated anymore. a brush and I remember, Steve, we looked at the one you did as well, stuff on the islands and Trout Lake and so forth. And at Nosman Singh as well. You've got big trees right up against dwellings. And we've got it all around our lakes. It's just something just for educating at the trade show. And I know you have a booth there. Just educating people. Make some clearing around your place. Give your dwelling a chance.
Eliminate the fuel load around your restaurant.
Exactly.
I know we've had substantial school that in the past.
Yep.
It's been a while.
I'm just talking like, you know, I'm saying avoiding or mitigating a risk. Some people aren't aware of what they're, what they're endangering. Thank you.
Yeah, it helps too late. So some of the top risks that we've identified in our municipality, Nipissing Manor, here in treatment facility. Private laneways, which limits our access, increases our response times. Large forested areas, we've got lots of walking trails, we've got a scooter trail that runs through here as well. And we have quite a few waterways, well, 3 waterways with islands and residents on the islands. So based on those risks, some of the one preferred treatment option would be to mitigate all of them, obviously. Education, training, prevention, expectation, and pre-plans is something that's has been and will be ongoing. We do what we can to try to help mitigate anything, but like you said, they bring some pamphlets out of even the brush in our home. And then maybe exploring some remote access, remote rescue, and suppression options for some of these laneways. Questions?
Good report.
Yeah. Good. Everybody did.
Good report.
It's a nice report. Yeah, it really was. It was a lot of work, but a little bit of time.
The full community risk assessment on the agenda. For
Yeah.
the document. But like Steph said, I think you worked with your officers and that like internally in the department.
Yeah.
We had a managers meeting, just, are we forgetting anything? Antoine was there as well, like, are there risks that, maybe they didn't think about, right? So from there, I went to committee. And we discussed at the committee level,
Yeah.
and then Steph's here tonight.
Did a couple meetings on community level and everybody worked really well together and updated all the information that the team put together here and great job, chief.
Every year.
It's a fluid report, like you were saying, right? So, the things are gonna happen, we may grow and have another building that's gonna, alter this document. That's why I said it's gonna be fluid or it's, it gives and takes, right? So.
We'll review it every January. If there's something that needs to be changed, we'll change it. But we don't have to wait till January either. If a new building goes up in June, we say, hey, this is
The risk.
this is gonna be a risk, we're gonna have a problem here, then we can put it in June. So.
Just one comment, in the last 20 years, we've had serious power outage all across Ontario. Then we had the windstorm. We had over 100, somewhere between 100 and 150 millimeters of rain in a very short time frame. So, and we count on the largest group of volunteers we have, which is the fire department. Because we have a lot of seniors and a lot of people are dependent on electricity for their health issues and heating in the wintertime. I mean, God forbid it happens in the middle of January and it's 40 below zero. So it's not unheard of. We've had emergencies that could be catastrophic in the long term. So anyway, no, a great report. Thank you.
Just one question. I apologize, I didn't see it, but in Asheville, we have the vacant building in the center of town. How is that considered in terms of risk for us?
There's not a whole lot of risk in there. There's no historic value to it from our perspective. We've never had any incidents in vacant buildings. There's no power in there. There's no heat. There's no ignition sources. So it's pretty low on the risk scale right now.
If there was to be a fire in that building, is there any risk of it spreading to other buildings in the village?
There's always risk of fire spread, But I think the distance from that building to any other building is pretty substantial, and I think with the fire hall being close enough there.
Right, that is.
We're just stay on the other side.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks, that's great.
Just a little reminder about October 14th.
Yes.
It's gonna be a good day. We've got a lot of stuff planned, things are shaping up. The mail outs went out this week. I think I got mine yesterday. Posters are up. Radio ads will start this weekend, I think. That's a Friday, right?
Saturday, October 14th.
I just want to say from committee level, again, staff, Kim did an awesome job and on that poster. It's just phenomenal. So it's great. Hopefully we can get some residents to come out and get some information from our fire department, and we're trying to recruit some volunteers.
We need some firefighters, that's for sure.
That's opening videos.
We're short of firefighters.
It's
How many?
it's the end of fire prevention.
We could take on, put it this way. We could take on 10+.
We're sitting at 21 right now. We'd love to be at 33-ish. It'd be nice to get to 40. Honestly.
So what kind of people are you looking for?
Anybody over 18.
You know what? You know what?
Is there an upper limit? Like, can you be 72 and?
There is no upper limit. There's all kinds of different jobs that can be done on the fire ground. So it's based on what you feel comfortable doing, and we will equip you and train you accordingly and move forward from there.
For more information, you'll have to attend the session on.
I'm gonna.
Very, we all this photo one night.
I'm joking. They've had,
And
Oh, okay.
We'll have a trailer there that you can do some training into. That's fun.
And the upside is all the skills you learn are transferable, especially in a rural community. Because everybody goes camping, most people go hiking or fishing or hunting or whatever, and they're isolated. When you're isolated and someone hurts themselves, it really helps to have someone there that's been trained in first aid. And the fire department has advanced first aid.
And the biggest thing too is, what's really unique about volunteers is that, and you almost touched on it. You almost like to take on, everybody brings something to the table. So whether what you do for a living or what you've done in the past, or it's nice because sometimes those people brings those skills and abilities to the fire department, and it's good because guys learn off other people and they bring something to the table, and and that's what makes you volunteer fire department so unique and you know, it works well together, is because everybody brings something unique to the table.
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
It's interesting at times.
good attitude. That's a positive attitude.
Yeah.
So we have a resolution?
Council municipality, Paris accepts the community risk assessment that prepared and presented by the fire.
On favor? It's all carried. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Wait. And on this note, we move to the Rebosch Park Playground request for proposal. With Mr. Curtin.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
So this report's following up on an RFP that we issued last month. We do have a rendering of the submission that's scored highest in our RFP scoring. Jason's going to play that in a second, but I'll just give you a bit of background on it. So we put our initial RFP out on July 21st. We did 2 minor addendums afterwards based on questions that we received, and in the end, we got 6 submissions. So 6 submissions is excellent, I would say. All of the submissions had viable projects, and As you can see from the scoring, it was quite close, with the exception of one that was a bit lower. And now it's predominantly because their pricing was a fair amount over our budget, which is why they scored lowly. But the rest of the submissions were, that they all had good components, they had some had some weaker components. Ultimately, we ended up recommending a company called Partner by Design. We felt that they especially scored highly in their variety and design of features. They I think did the best job at incorporating features that cater to age ranges from 18 months all the way up into the early teens. They also were the only one that offered a pathway through the middle that was made out of a rubberized material, which is better for accessibility. You can access features in other parts of the park and in other people's submissions over the fiber, which is commonly installed. However, it's more accessible and easier to use on the rubberized surface. We actually initially had requested that the entire surface be made of the rubberized material. And one of our addendums was actually to remove that requirement when we found out the pricing. We did a bit of our own research into it, and it turns out that actual installation costs are astronomical. So if we looked at rubberizing our entire surface area, we'd have no playground on top of it because we cost
Entire park was 126,000 and the structure is 125. So we had to make a couple changes, but.
So ultimately, I thought this was a very
From the start, I thought.
Yeah.
So, but I thought this was a clever incorporation of some of that material to weave its way through the park. Yeah. So that along with a very solid warranty and then just the variety that I already mentioned, kind of edged it out for Park by Design. So that's the basis of a recommendation. We had a scoring matrix as part of the RFP. They did meet our budget of 125,000 plus HST. And this is, this is the part that they proposed, that they did a really nice rendering. It shows how the features integrate. There is an opportunity to take a look at maybe modifying some of the features if we wanted to after. One of the things that we identified is that none of the submissions provided swing sets in any of the proposals. So we've heard some feedback from other people in the community that like the swing sets. So, there might be a little bit of tweaking to accommodate a feature like that. But ultimately, I think this proposal is very close to what we would see built if council chooses to go with this discussion.
What's the timeline for this?
So the timeline, good question. We were hoping initially for this year. It's not going to be possible because of supply delays for all of the manufacturers. So they've indicated a May 31st, 2024 completion date. Completed by May 31st.
I believe the lead time from when they order the equipment to receiving it was about 12 weeks is one of the companies. So when you look at that, I mean, you're starting to talk 3 months.
Yeah, there's one company that said they may be able to finish completion by the 3rd or 4th week of December, but that seems a little unlikely to me given our climate.
When you're from Southern Ontario, you can still do a playground 3 weeks into December. We thought, it's not gonna happen up here.
That was a magic shovel.
Yeah, like Greg had mentioned as well, we're going with the best submitted one, but a bit of the discussion we had on this was there's already a couple climbing apparatuses, I guess I would say. So there's been a bit of a discussion on switching out possibly this one here where you see there's about 3 kids on it. The most is the best right now, but this lower piece. And maybe doing a swing set. But what we have to do is award it to the best one and then say, what's the value of this piece? What's the value of the bongos on the side? And then what's yes, to be equivalent to where our budget is, right? One of them as well, and I'm gonna scroll, I think I could just. One of them we didn't really like, to be honest, is this jungle gym thing here at the bottom. We feel it's a little unsafe if you've got a kid fall through the top, but also, in all honesty, a bit boring. We thought there's a nice piece that could be added to it. Park that was done in North Bay at Homestead Beach has a rock wall.
Yes.
They're doing,
Mhm.
I think the pricing would be somewhat equivalent to that. I saw it on the weekend. It's pretty neat. And Greg goes by there quite often with his dog and it's always busy, the rock
They
wall.
usually slope, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit safety, but they're a little challenging, I would think.
They're missing the very popular, yeah.
Yeah, so the thought is the main structure would be identical, but the pieces they put off to the side, they were trying to add to it to make it more expansive. We thought, well, maybe we could see what's available and maybe switch out some of those. The swing set, we don't really want to lose a swing set. So, yeah. And a swing set, when you look at it, it's basic. I mean, it's bars and then change with seats. So we're feeling like it's not a very expensive piece. That if we, but we won't know until we award it and then.
What are those like?
Won't change.
You can have a baby. Put it in and, it's interactive as a parent. Or whatever, or an older brother or sister, sibling, whatever. Is pushing it and it's fun. And the other kids like, they're kind of a little isolation. Cause that's a community deal.
Or grandfather, eh?
Or good grandfather, one that cares.
But so a couple of years ago, we did the one in the YMCA and I put shape rubber in. And the year later, we was taken out. So what are we doing? There's a big shed that we're putting in here.
Wood fiber,
Good fun.
wood fiber material.
I know that I understand the rubberized surface is probably the most popular now for many, but I think this is a good compromise, so we have it in there.
They're the only ones that submitted a mix of a
Yeah.
wood fiber and a rubber matting. One thing we gotta remember is we put this through the ISIS grant and said it was gonna be inclusive playground
Yes,
for accessibility and we were gonna have structures that did that. So some of the things you don't see here, they're for autistic kids, so like sensory items and that. So it was supposed to be all inclusive. So, and this was a playground we got a lot bang for the buck. Like there was one submitted and I don't want to knock any of them, but it was just one structure with nothing else around it. And it was a higher priced one and we thought, where did they go wrong maybe on that? But
Second part of the question, we recently took ahead because the kids are running, especially the little ones. Didn't sound as great. However, would this do the same? Like if the little kids with those shorts on and they're running and they stop and fall.
So it's a fairly smooth surface. You can see it at some parks in North Bay, where it's already been installed, like one kid's place has a bit of material. There's one off Lakeside Drive, Birchip, and it's kind of the gold standard for playground equipment from fall protection perspective. And it does seem fairly smooth. I don't think you
no.
yeah, anything like that.
I've hit a few playgrounds on the weekend with my daughter, 3 of them that had rubberized like that and she's fallen on them. Didn't seem to be an issue. They've got a bit of a bounce to them almost as well, so a bit of an absorption. What we liked about this one was that wheelchair can make it to the ramp on a rubberized surface, which it can't through a wood fiber. And also the smallest slide lands on a rubberized mat, so you got your smaller kids. The larger slides go into a wood fiber and it's normally your older children, right? So we really like that point to it all as well. The fact that they could even put in that much rubber and they had a very expansive park within budget. I'm not sure if these are the ones, but there was even one company that gave a $35,000 credit to the municipality in their submission. And I'm not quite, I don't want to speak to who it was anyway, but we got quite a bit for the budget on this one.
But at the end of the day, it has to be certified, right?
It's all CSA certified. They got to follow regulation. They're very similar to the tenders, like when we went through them, they all speak to certain regulation and CSA and.
They all do final inspection before we take that sign off the playground and you have to be certified in order to do that. They all do that.
Yeah, so I guess with that pad or the rubberized, are we going to then have something like a driveway that leads to that so that parents can, because right now you'd have to go up and over something. So
we'll need to do a little bit of site preparation work to accommodate it. But right now, when you come in, If you're looking at the Corville Park Hall front parking lot, there's the wooden structure to the right side that has the HVAC equipment. Just to the right of that, when the drive off comes down, there's a gate and a fence right there that goes to the parking lot. So the part of the idea would be that the parking lot will connect directly to this mat, so that access.
This piece here, this end
Yes.
to the left.
Go right in, and if it made more sense to say slightly curl the other end of the park or slightly reconfigure to accommodate where our existing gates are, or where, say, for example, something that Jason and I spoke about. If we're looking at the left side of the gate of the parking lot, exactly opposite side is where our gazebo structure is, and eventually stuff near the park. So instead of the mat coming on the end, you just twirl it and it comes out where the bongos are, and you just move them, then it connects directly to the whole seating area at the soccer field. So those type of little tweaks can be done without any effect on the overall budget.
It'll be higher. Elevated, a little bit.
It'll be set up in a way that it's either flush with the ground or there's a ramp that meets like grade requirements. Ability to access any part.
You're talking the ramp?
I'm just thinking if it should be elevated, it's winter time, when it snows, you want it to sit low, because otherwise it'll stay wet forever. You want to make sure it's elevated enough so the snow doesn't sit on it and the rain doesn't.
I was gonna ask you about the water thing, drainage
Snow
on top of it.
and. Higher.
We don't have issues now with the playground in the spring.
What's far enough back is if you can't put your snow up.
So this will fit within that same area.
Yes, sorry, that's a good point.
It fits within the same parameters as our current playground. It looks much larger, but you gotta remember that there's area there not being used. Like you got a swing set over here and there's quite a bit of sandy area that's not.
You're gonna leave the fence in place. We're talking about snow accumulation against the equipment.
Yeah, like we feel the fence may need to come down to get structures in place and all that, and then it'll go off, but it was that same area.
But it'll be.
Well, the way it's, I mean, I thought it was parking lot there.
Oh, it's.
No, there'll still be the.
Okay.
Looks good.
The one other thing I mentioned quickly about budget, so when we did capital budget, we didn't break down the expenses for this and the rink as separate line items. They were all put together. So we do know the tender value for both the concrete and the rink boards that Antoine brought at the last council meeting. So we had budgeted $387,000 for all three of these major items. So in the financial application section of my report, I did the math on previous values and if we award this. And that would leave us with an extra just shy of $26,000 within the budgeted amount. Now we do know that there will be some minor incidental fees that we incur, say like setback or small things with the rink. We're going to do a bit of drainage modification to the rink. We're going to get into that a little bit, but the main point is that we are budgeting for additional.
Couple things we mentioned as well is when you look at the playground catalog, there's some nice accessories tied to a playground. I've experienced this in North Bay. You go to a playground, your kids are playing, you have no bench to sit on. I sat on the rubberized mat in the shade and Zola plays, right? But it's like, where's the bench? So things like that you want to ensure, because right now we have benches in our parks. If you're an adult though and you sit, the sand is way too high. So I think over time, as maybe sand was added in that, but what I'm getting at is maybe we're adding a couple benches or seats or other little things that are needed in a playground, right? So.
Just a thought, if you go walking down the calendar boardwalk, the bench is designated to a passed on loved one or just a corporation saying donated by so and so. It's a good advertisement and you get a free bench, and it's to me, it's a win-win economic development, right? Because it's advertising. So something to think about.
Just put all the playground is coming down. Didn't we use it again somewhere else?
We've definitely been thinking about that, yes. And the goal is going to see what some of the certified playground inspection says about like any challenges with moving it, if there are any. And what would happen to get it installed and recertified. So our thoughts were that since this isn't going to happen until next spring, that we would look at this thing and try to build it into the budget 2024. But I think if possibly it would be great to reuse it because it's still in okay condition. And maybe you fix up a little of the things that are showing square and then maybe you get another decades out of it or something.
Our thoughts was once this is awarded, we ask Park and Play to kind of maybe evaluate it for us.
Sure.
I mean, there's no, might as well work with them. They've got playground inspectors and things like that, but let's see what we can use it for. We know in the past, Hillside subdivision, Phil Brown subdivision, I guess, has come forward and wanted playground there. We've heard about a playground structure at Big Moose. This one's too big for that park. We know that we don't have the area. But hey, if we can repurpose it, we've talked about pocket parks.
Yeah.
Might have a park coming in South Shore Road.
So another thing too, we might look at it, they might look at the swing set and say, hey, it's off to its own side. Maybe it means it's a paint job and new chains and seats, and we leave the swing set in place. And then we don't have to really negotiate on losing too much for a swing set. And it's already in place, right?
Which is not made in place.
No,
Oh, no, well, we know the strap plan, we've named places, but for pocket parks and that,
yep, definitely.
so. But yeah,
Good on.
Very good.
If
Presentation.
no further questions, we'll move on to the resolution.
Mhm.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Trahan, Deputy Riders. Council,
Excuse me.
the council for the municipality disperse accepts the recommendation and record services contained in report number COM 2023-08. And award the contract for the supply and installation of the new playground at Ridge Park to Park and Play Design Company Limited in the amount of $125,000 plus HST.
On favor? The bond carried. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Mr. Curtin. Now to bylaws, and we have three. I guess the first one is the third reading of the fireworks. Did you have any changes or comments from any member? Okay, so let's proceed then. Immediately then.
Mover and please, Councilors Kelly. Bylaw number 2023-36 being a bylaw to regulate the set of fireworks due at a third time and pass this 26th day of September 2023. And that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
On favor? The bond carried. Thank you. We move now to bylaw B. Bylaw to authorize the certain agreement between the Estancia and Conseil Scolaire Catholique now. Turn it over to you.
I'm gonna bring one thing up first before we get into that bylaws. Back in the day, most of the time we would read 3 readings of a bylaw and pass it. Then when Monica had started with us, we got into reading the first and second, and then at the next meeting, bringing forward the 3rd reading. The only time we didn't do that when it was like an administrative bylaw, so we set our tax rates for budget. Well, we went through the whole budget process. This is just a product of passing that budget, right? So we did 3 readings. So it was brought to our attention because on item number C, there's a planning bylaw that's on here that's got first, second, third reading. So I guess, like I found out today, and there's no issues, but internally staff had made a decision that planning, let's do 3 readings all at once and get it done with, right? Prior to Monica's retirement, we were doing the 1 and 2 readings and then following up with the 3rd reading, right? So I guess a bit of discussion with council is for planning matters, do you want to have a first and second reading and then it comes to the next meeting? Or are you okay with this?
Councilor Kelly?
I'll tell you from a staffing perspective why it was that, if you've got somebody that's developing, it saves 2 weeks time, right? Also in our summer months, we have 1 meeting each month. So if you have a June meeting or July and you do first and second, you have a whole month to wait to do a 3rd reading, right? Unless you call the special meeting. So
It's already passed by plan, and it's already passed by us once. It's kind of redundant to have a 3rd one.
and that's the details, right? Just
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So we first did this on the rezoning application at the corner of Highway 17 and Centennial for the animal hospital. And we did that because of the situation we just described, being in 1 meeting and they were looking to get going, again, financially, like more venture. And then I was thinking about it and I basically asked her for all bylaws. I should have brought the council to discuss kind of pros and cons of each, but my thought process, I guess, we're speeding up the process. We're dealing with an item only once, twice, and then if there is an issue, then just would like to stuff, we can always make a third reading. But really it's, for both ways achieve the same outcome, and I'm happy to go with whatever council.
And I don't bring it up that it was something done wrong or I'm against it. I want council to be aware that there was a change made and we really should have said, council, we've made a change, right? That's it.
Well, certainly, personally, I find them have issues that are sensitive to the public, not to do with planning actually. But just like, for example, the fireworks resolution, I think we know the repercussions of that. When we had the animal control scandal for the, I always call it poultry barn.
Yeah.
But you know, those, I kind of like on those ones where I know that there are interests and concerns of a heightened degree in our community to have a first and a second to make sure that. So personally, I don't know if that's any guideline, but I do approach it that way. What's administrative, what's urgent, what needs to get going. I kind of like 1, 2, 3, you know, in that regard.
Contested, then I see it, but it's not contested, it's already passed. Unanimous, the other, why do you need 31?
Wait, when it's gone to a committee, is what you're saying, that doesn't Champagne? Yes.
Funny thing is that if you do have a public, there's really there's no space for the public to actually exercise their comments or on certain things. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to think outside the box here with what, what's proper, way to go about it. So if sometimes if you go 1, 2, 3 right off the bat, well, you're not really giving anybody any chance to rebuttal or maybe, put in some information or whatever, right?
Unless it's gone out.
Unless it's
level.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like you said, pros and cons, I have no problem either thinking, well, you cut some red tape, right, to exercise for somebody if they want to do something too. So it's.
One day bill, so if that 20 days to fill it. Then he goes to the second.
Well, I'm just trying to talk, we're talking about a little bit of everything, just not building, right? So, it's. Because we gotta try and be consistent on what we're doing here. So are we gonna do 2 and 1, or are we doing 3s and 0s and, you know what I mean? Like, so it's.
The reason is it came up because of C tonight, like normally it'd be first and second reading and then we bring third to the next. So that's why I picked on planning.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's, you got this one here going first, second, third. Then you got, C going in first, second, third, and then you got other ones where we're doing 2 and 1s. And so it's, I think if there's no urgency, which is fine, we'll say with planning, if there was a planning, and there's no extragent circumstances or big book push, I could see, with 2 and 1, or if there's something like, hey, these are the extragent circumstances and these are the reasons why we have to push ahead and go 3 readings in one reading, then we can push it that way. But there's got to be a little more substance to, I think, that you have to push this for 3 readings all at once. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying.
I agree with you. The other way, look at the other ones. Fireworks one was a little bit of discussion going on because we weren't sure. They said, this goes to committee, it's a little bit different, but the fireworks didn't go to committee. We were the. Trying to figure that out.
Fireworks went to the committee-ish.
Yeah, except there's no public input on that one where planning has the public piece and residents are on the committee.
That's what you got time. From the appeal period, you got lots of time to do it before the first meeting. So if there's no contentious, then the third meeting should go.
Yeah. My only cautions with that is staff looking back on whether it's contentious or not. You start picking and choosing what's contentious and not, and you could have a developer say, I have to wait for a third reading and somebody else went through on it.
And that's what.
It's tough from a staff perspective as well, unless you see the staff come forward and if you think it's a 3 reading, do it. But if council says, no, we want to defer to the next meeting for third reading, you guys have that.
So it's a good recommendation from the plan.
So Like, if you think things that come from planning have been vetted enough and you want to do 3 readings, fine. If a council member feels they need more info or, you know, they want to wait, then defer the 3rd reading to the next meeting. Right?
That's so answer.
Sure, so this is a unique one because we've had trouble with keeping on the agenda and reading, because we did have two taxpayers that replied in opposition to this one.
Correct.
So, which means, I would say, for the sake of, I think transparency, I'd like to go to the 3rd meeting at the next meeting. That's my opinion. Because one is, we didn't have, people couldn't read the information. I'm talking about council now. And we, you know, the committee looked over the both letters. You'll see them, they're in the minutes. They looked over both letters and found that they were not, it was unanimous to pass the motion to change the property from residential to commercial. It's that simple. So, but I think council should have a chance to look at the letters, decide for themselves and come back at the 3rd meeting and let's put it on for the 3rd reading in this instance. But I think where it's unanimous and I think quite frankly, if there's no opposition from the public, it's unanimous at committee and council. But I think any one councillor should have the ability to say, you know what, I don't really want 3rd readings. And I think everybody working in good faith, I think that works.
Yeah.
Because some can go through, when there's anything contentious, I think it doesn't hurt for transparency to say 3rd reading wouldn't hurt. Let's think it over, especially this one, because quite frankly, I looked at the agenda this morning. I phoned Carrie, what, at 8:05 or 40, so I can't get on. And no, I mean, because I like to do, I spend the morning of the meeting, council meeting, going over everything. I usually make a few phone calls, so you get opinions, and away we go. Couldn't do it. So.
Yeah. And then we got an email from Carrie shortly after.
Exactly. But even then, I couldn't read the correspondence because it didn't, you know, I just got the headlines. So, and as you know, there was 2 letters sent by taxpayers.
But in all fairness.
Yeah, you guys got those letters, did you not?
Yeah.
Because I think Greg sent them.
But some people don't read until the last day of the council meeting. So I've got no problem. I think if it's anything contentious in 2 letters, I would say it's contentious, but there's people with concerns. Let's read it over, come back for the 3rd reading. But other than that, if it's unanimous, I'm fine with just letting it go through. Especially, I think in the spring and summer, because that's construction season. And if it's straightforward, like the adjustments were this time, then let's get it done. That's my opinion. I don't, is anybody else?
Yes.
Thanks. I just wanted to, just for council information, I just put clarification on the process. So a couple things. So quickly, the council Champagne comments about the appeal period. So the 20-day appeal period happens after council's decision. So the appeal period is not between the committee and the council. It's after the final decision where they can elevate it to the tribunal if they wish. The second comment about public interaction that Councilor Can brought up though, I definitely share your concern about public not potentially having the opportunity to participate. And the Planning Act is kind of foundationally built upon that concept of public participation. And we're required the statutory public meeting, and the Planning Advisory Committee meeting is that statutory public meeting. The council meetings are open for public comment, so they've already had their chance to provide their comments as per the Planning Act regulations, regardless of whether it's 1 or 2. So I just want to clarify those 2 points because.
Well, I hear part of your recommendation then is that we should go for 3 readings on planning matters because it doesn't matter.
No, not necessarily. Just wanted to make sure you fully understood.
But maybe if I fully understand what you just said, I just want to make sure you're saying that basically once it's gone through the planning committee, the public has no other opportunity to voice their concerns. It's more so ourselves. If we ourselves want to consider it and ponder it and ask further questions, is that correct?
That's correct. You definitely see situations where there's value in delaying to a future council meeting, so you can review further. But the public portion is that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Just added clarification, at every meeting, as a chair, I do announce that if anyone in the public is attending and wish to speak on this matter, please feel free. We have, you have your 5 or 10 minutes. And so the people that wrote the letters could have shown up at the meeting and voiced their opinion in person, not only just sending correspondence. And we've had people do that. And sometimes they have 2 or 3 people. If they're in strict opposition, I don't want that going next door and whatever the reason. They have the right to show up in person and voice their opinions. Okay, in this case, there's 2 letters, but no follow-up in person. So this is just fact. But I announce at every meeting, we announce on every case, whether it's adjustments or planning, is there anybody in the public which wishes to speak in this matter? And that's being transparent. So that's just for the general public that's listening tonight, knowing that this is how we conduct our open meetings.
So far, I would say that we've done well, right, in terms of evaluating. We've had I think you described it well. Like we've had a system where we evaluate urgency, whether it's gone to a committee, it's not gone to a committee. It does oblige you to at every issue to consider whether you recommend, and that is sometimes
Yeah.
problematic, correct?
That's why I feel if we're gonna pick on planning, put first, second, and third, and it's at council's discretion to move it to a future meeting. So if you feel you've heard from residents that day of the meeting, you come forward and we're ready for first, second, third, and say, well, I'd like to move third reading, defer to the next meeting. Everybody votes, moves it to the next meeting. Then at least we know
And so
the
it's a
plan.
guideline. It's not, nothing's written in carved in stone here. It's
Council
just a
can decide
guideline.
on any bylaw we bring forward, even if we have it as first, second, third and ready to go, that they want to defer. Any matter can be deferred, right? So
So are we comfortable with that? That in general, we go to 3 readings? If a council member wishes to delay or to have a more opportunity to examine the matter, consider it, we then move forward, unless there's something.
I think for planning, because it went to that committee, but like we discussed, the fireworks one, that's a good example of it only coming to council as a first and second. Then you have an opportunity to bring it to the next meeting because
You
it
want,
didn't go through a public vetting or
yes,
process,
yeah.
right? So.
I just don't like the wording you said in there is any counselor can install as he wants. It shouldn't be said that way. It should be said that, if the recommendation from the planning board says there should be a first and second, third reading, then we decide if it's a first and second, third reading. Not because one counselor says, well, I don't want to think.
No, that's why I said, there's gotta be some more substance to, to moderate or to a third
Exactly.
reading.
We asked like
Next council.
and Greg, is this a good for first, second, third, and you say yes, then we make our decision. So it's fine or name. If he feels necessary, then we agree. Okay.
But I don't, we can't be doing that, sorry.
Just for your information, the planning about they make recommendations on an issue, not on our serial process.
Yeah.
So they don't recommend how you. So I mean, I guess we could do something like this, just unanimous recommendation of any annual public comment and then. Also three, I just, I think I shared this concern about maybe other call on it.
I think it's gotta be black or white. It's whether we are either coming forward with planning at 3 readings and letting council defer.
That's what I.
We can't have staff dictating that or a committee that doesn't dictate council's procedures.
For clarification, this never came up in any committee.
The readings, it won't.
No.
Okay, no, it won't. I'm just saying, all they do is give a recommendation that just should be approved.
Yeah.
And as I say, it was unanimous in this case.
Yeah, and then from that, council was, you either agree on their approval in 1, 2, or the 3rd reading at another meeting. For them, they put it forward, they recommend yes.
Yes.
Whether you say yes in 1 meeting or 2 is your prerogative.
If I'm correct, did we understand your council in general saying we agree with the 3?
Yes,
And then if at the meeting there is.
then you defer.
We defer.
Yeah, because I'll give you an example. If you're gonna have a staff member dictate that, Greg's brought a recommendation to that committee to say yes.
Yeah.
So coming to you, it would be do all 3 readings. I've already said yes. It's up to council now to say, well, do we have time to analyze this enough, get public feedback, consult with people? So that's why it said, I don't think we can work it that way, right? So.
Okay, that was a good discussion.
Good. Okay.
So we move forward with item B, Monsieur Tracy.
Okay, so. Item B, back in 2014, we sold a piece of land to the school board to build a new school. And then in that year, we passed another bylaw about servicing of the land. So that was all done. In the land servicing agreement or the agreement to purchase and sell, it stipulated we would come forward with a joint use maintenance agreement. It should have been done back in 2014-15, it was never done. So anyway, long story short, we've been negotiating with the school board, the joint use maintenance agreement that's in front of council tonight. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to read it. I mean, I can go over it. This is the whole purpose of the agreement. The parties are entering into this agreement in order to provide for the mutual use, maintenance, cost sharing, and other matters related to certain infrastructure, as well as to regulate and govern the use and enjoyment of the various easements over and or benefiting parts of the school board lands and the municipalities' lands respectively. So the school lands and our arena lands. I'm not going to go over definitions, but it basically speaks to the easements that we have over top of our property and the school board properties. So there's some for storm sewer easement, water drain easement, force mains, septics, so on and so forth. There's a hydrant. Under section 5 is where it speaks to the operation, maintenance, repair, and replacement of certain infrastructure. Now, just for a bit of background on this, our engineer Antoine has sat with the school board and had negotiated up to a certain point what the agreement would look like by looking at, you know, the property survey and where the easements lie in that. Section 5 kind of starts breaking down who's responsible for what. So if you look at 5.1, it says the arena, force main, and septic is fully our responsibility. 5.2 says the school's force main and septic is fully their responsibility. And then we get into storm sewer and head walls. So if you look at 5.3A, it says the municipality would be solely responsible for all costs related to routine maintenance, repair, replacement of the storm sewer pipe and head walls, which are located along Village Road, which only makes sense because it's there's an easement there and it's basically on our property on the front of the school lands. B says that the school board and municipality shall share the costs related to the replacement of the stormwater drain and catch basins located on the school parking lot. So think about it when you look at the school, there's a set of lights down the center. The line of the property basically cuts right through there. So we're sharing a parking lot, we're sharing lighting, so on and so forth. So what the whole purpose of the agreement is to say who's responsible for paying for future repairs to the lighting, or if it's got to be replaced, or a parking lot that's got to be repaved one day. All of that. This is what this is trying to achieve. We've got to enter into an agreement with them because a prior bylaw stipulated we get to an agreement. So what it's saying B is that the costs related to the replacement of the stormwater drain and catch basins located in the school parking lot will be 65% responsible. The school board will be 35% will be the responsibility of the municipality. The 65-35 split as you go through is basically the area of the parking lot and who owns what section. So that's why you'll see that a couple times. And if not, you're going to see a 50-50 split. The fire hydrant, school board solely responsible for all costs related to and the performance of testing annually or otherwise the fire hydrant in respect of which the municipality shall provide at no charge a fire truck as needed for that testing. The school board will be solely responsible for adding riprap, such other materials to protect the pond inlet. If you go further down, the most important part of 5.4 is that the school board and the municipality shall share the costs related to the repair and replacement of the fire hydrant and the piping leading to the retention pond, because we're sharing the retention pond behind the arena. That's a 50-50 cost. The retention pond, the municipality agrees to refrain from draining it. These are just clauses that are in the agreement. I'm not going to go through each piece. Parking lot resurfacing, school board would be responsible for 65% of the cost of resurfacing. The municipality would be responsible for 35%. That's of the school parking lot section. So we would, and then flip it, our arena section, we'd be responsible for 65% of that, and they're responsible for 35%. And that's more if we decide one day we're gonna redo the entire parking lot, who's paying for what, right? Parking lot curbs. Each party is responsible for curbs and sidewalks located on their respective parking lots. Done deal there. Parking lot lighting, it's a 50-50 split for any repair, maintenance, replacement of the lights. Parking lot snow removal, we're both responsible for our own lots. Parking lot sweeping, the municipality will be solely responsible for sweeping both parking lots once a year. So usually after winter, we go through with our own piece of equipment, and we're agreeing to do their section as well. You will see throughout the agreement, they've agreed to certain things they're gonna be fully responsible for that we benefit from. Play structures, school board's responsible for all costs related to the maintenance, repair, replacement, where they deem appropriate of the play structures and ensuring that they're in working condition. Prior to the removal of any play structure, the school board is going to notify the municipality that they're removing them. And we have an opportunity to take the playground equipment and reinstall it somewhere else at our cost. You can remember though that the play structures came from the municipality and were installed in the school parking lot. That's why this clause, if they decide they want to replace them, it's really municipal property that was utilized there, so they would flip them back to us. From there on, there's no splits in terms of who's paying what. Now you're getting into the evaluation of the maintenance, conduct of the work, basic clauses. I would say beyond that, section 6, there's not much to look at. It's just payment and how invoicing works. But number 7 is use of facilities. Bit of the agreement, thoughts when this first came up was how can we maximize utilization of municipal property and school property to the benefit of both parties. So what's in here is that the municipality grants the school the right to make use of the library and its services from time to time free of charge. No biggie there. I mean, there's no cost right now to renting out, like taking out books, DVDs and circulation. But it's also in accordance with any policies, procedure imposed by the library board. We had to put wording in there because we don't want to dictate the library what they're going to do on a daily basis when dealing with the school. So that's why that clause is in there. And then you just put kind of, the parties acknowledge that the school currently uses the library approximately 1 hour session per week per group for a total of approximately 260 students visiting the library per week. So what they wanted to is just show what the current usage is and what the intention is on a goal for that usage. The arena, municipality grants the school the right to use the arena from time to time at preferred rates in accordance with the municipality's fees and charges bylaw and in accordance with any policies, procedures imposed by the municipality. So in our fees and charges bylaw, we already have a preferred rate for any schools when they bring their classes to the arena. At first, this stipulated free of charge, but they're currently paying for usage. So we basically negotiated here that you're already getting a preferred rate, stick to that. Preferred rate is about 50% of prime time rate. So you got $116 for a prime time rate. And the school rate's $53. So that's what it is today, but our fees and charges bylaw changes on annually, right? Tennis court, same thing. They can use them free of charge from time to time in accordance with our policies, but nobody pays to use the tennis court now. So there's no preferential treatment when it comes to that. The school, the municipality will make use of the school gymnasium, classrooms, and outdoor facilities from time to time, free of charge in accordance with their policies and procedures. Right now, we only use it once a year, the municipalities for the trade show, bubble soccer and things at the back, like this, the kids zone. So that's where we're using it now, but there's an opportunity to use it more if we shall need to. Play structures, what this basically wants to highlight is that the play structures are available to the general public after school and daycare operating hours and on weekends and summer is basically what it's saying there. The rest of the agreement is clauses that you would find in standard agreement, things like indemnities, the insurance, dispute resolution, any notices. Here's the address for the school board office. Here's the address for the new municipal office. And then this agreement is going to be registered on title. So it's transferable to any successors, so on and so forth. Yeah, and beyond that, everything else is pretty straightforward. We will have, like you can see under Schedule A and B, the description of the lands, legal description. We don't have it in here yet, but this is in draft at this point. And then also there's gonna be a survey of the property that shows all the easements. And that would be under section C, Schedule C. I think that's kind of, I know there's more in the agreement, but that's a high level of what we negotiated with the school at this time.
Okay, wait, but
Just one question, the septic bed itself, who's responsible? It looks like the school board's 100% responsible for the septic system, because it's not even on there.
Yeah, there's,
It says the tank. But the septic system itself, there's an easement, but who is responsible for cost sharing on it?
the council Champions, which clause are you looking at?
I don't see it anywhere. I know that the tanks are there, that we're responsible for the force main and that coming from the arena.
Yeah.
Bed itself,
The bed's on our property.
the beds for both the school and the municipality, it's the same one.
Yeah, so what clause, septic field easement?
I don't see it. If there's a septic field easement, it tells you what the easement is, but it doesn't say if there's a cost, repairs or anything on it. So if there's nothing on there, the school board's taking 100% responsibility, which is good.
The septic shared though right now and it's on our property. Right?
Right, so if it goes bad, who's responsible to replace it?
I have to see.
It refers back to recitals under septic system beds.
Clause.
Recitals is number 1.
Titles. So.
Not really spelled out.
Define the recitals above.
on page 2.
Yeah, parties here to.
Septic field beds is defined in recitals above.
So to me, that says the school board is responsible for both.
And then it says septic field easement as defined in section 4.4.
Easements on our property, but septic system. But it's a valve that's used by the school board. I don't know if the can works with this happening in there. Has the septic ever failed?
Oh, you know what? It's covered, I believe, under the land servicing agreement that was already passed in 2014. That's why it's saying recitals above.
Okay.
I have the agreement in my office.
I just want to make sure that.
Okay, so as long as they're covered with that, what I'll do is I'll send an email to council tomorrow to indicate that piece. If there's anything else you can think of, let me know.
I got one, 7.5. Is there a sign there saying that this playground is open to the general public after hours?
Thought there was one at.
There was, I don't know if it's still there. Because
Find out.
Tomorrow.
okay, because I don't see it utilized that often.
The only thing it talks about is 5.1 and 5.2.
Yeah, it just says the tanks, like they're not responsible for.
Anyway, there was a sign,
Yes.
Or the force main going on.
because a lot of people, a lot of little kids, you know, they're there, and I don't see a lot of people use it.
It's not on there, to me, like.
The one you want to receive. Second.
Yeah, so septic bed and sign at the playground. I'll find out both of those.
Okay, all right, yep, thank you.
Like I said, I wish I had a chance to look at it today, so I can find it.
Well, it's a good idea.
So the resolution we're putting forward is one, we know that it's not quite, there's still little items to be worked out. It's one in general. Oh, more questions. You have more questions?
I'm just kind of reading faster. There's 4.4.
Okay,
Mhm. It is addressed in 4.4, but not,
That's just the easement.
that's an easement, yeah.
There's no cost.
I'm just going real fast.
Yeah, it's just, I looked at it like too, Steve. Okay. It just says municipalities and 5 meters from each side building.
yeah, so there, yes.
No, we'll take a look at those.
All right, okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mover and a seconder, please.
If I may make one comment as well, just to let you know, our solicitor has reviewed this as well.
Okay.
Had provided comments. It's gone back and forth between us and the solicitors from the school board as well. But David Jermaine has reviewed and provided his comments, so.
David was also involved with the previous agreements, so he had gone back, because I know one of the clauses that we put in here. The school board had said, well, it doesn't have to be registered on title. And David said, well, the 2014 agreement says it'll be registered on title. So he had done a thorough review at that time.
Because it's for septic things back there.
It's amazing.
I'm a mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Singh and Deputy Mayor Akers. Whereas Council of the Municipality of East Ferris deems it expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to authorize the execution of a joint use and maintenance agreement between the corporation of the municipality of East Ferris and Conseil Scolaire de District Franco Nord be read a first, second, and third time. Passed and numbered 2023-41, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation.
All in favor? So don't carry. Thank you so much. We come to item C. Should we? I think we've had good discussion on that. I know you had recommended, Councilor Kelly, it's a first and second reading only tonight, but I think after the general discussion, you're comfortable with 3 readings tonight? Is that correct? Okay, so let's proceed with the resolution.
Mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Champagne and Hand. Whereas Council of the Municipality of East Ferris deems it expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2021-60 as amended, Gagny Carpentry, Corbeil Road, Tiger Road, Meadow Drive, be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2023-42. And that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
All in favor? So don't carry. Thank you so much. I know we moved to correspondence and information items, and just for the sake of time, maybe just proceed with a few comments directly on a few items. Item C, we have David King, our integrity commissioner. It indicates there that his term is expiring, so we will have to renew his term if council so wishes. And I think the recommendation from our staff will be that we renew his term. And that said, we had, as a council, there was work we wanted done on our procedural bylaws and on our code of conduct. And with our clerk that was retiring and our new clerk that was coming into position, we had said we would wait so that we would, under a new clerk, go through making those changes. And so the recommendation is that this will come forward at a future meeting, a recommendation to renew the mandate for David King, and as well to proceed with some of the work that we wanted done for the conduct procedural bylaws as part of the new term in 2024.
Yeah, so if council's in agreement, we'll get a new agreement from David King if you want to keep him as integrity commissioner, and we'll get that passed by year end because his agreement expires December 31st. The other work was work on our bringing our code of conduct a little more, doing some work on the code of conduct basically, and then also some forms and processes that would be put on our website for the public, right? We did get a price on that. We didn't budget for much for integrity commissioner. So the thought is to give them a go ahead with that, with the understanding the work would be performed into next year and be part of next year's budget. There is a cost of about $3,000. So it's not significant, but we didn't budget for it. So, and it's not a mad rush that work get done. We could start it on our own end first with council reviewing, procedural bylaw. That's one thing we need to look at. And then waiting for the code of conduct when we get David King involved.
So that's the thought on that item. If that's okay, we don't have to talk about it any further. It'll come back to council for further discussion. I see. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I just have probably a little silly question. When it comes to picking, say, the David King, or usually there was a list of people, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, they dictate how much they get paid an hour. Is that right or wrong?
So I'll explain a bit of it, Councilor Trahan. Back a few years back when we had to have an integrity commissioner was legislated. We did a joint RFP or tender with the surrounding communities. And whatever we chose was going to be the same integrity commissioner. So David King got it.
Yes.
So he's for the area, basically, right?
Right.
So then he provided an agreement, council passed it. This is the one that's expiring now this year.
That's right.
So council's decisions are stick with David King or see if other municipalities want to go back out with a joint tender or go on our own for an RFP or tender, it'd be an RFP, to see what the rates are, right?
Okay, that's, yeah, I'm remembering that.
Then the piece where they kind of dictate, I guess, the cost is that if there's an investigation, we can't limit them to the hours they spend on an investigation, like you can't interfere. So they can come forward and say it was 10 hours or it was 30 hours, whatever it be, and it's at their hourly rate that's in that agreement. So we do a retainer of about $300 a year right now. That's to have David King. He provides an annual report to council. If he comes to training in a new council session, like a new term of council, he charges that's above and beyond that retainer. So that's how it works. So those are council's decisions to, we have to have an integrity commissioner. So it's either stick with them, go back out to RFP, or possibly a joint RFP. I'm not quite sure. We haven't pulled them. But when we did it, I believe it was East Ferris, Bonfield, Chisholm.
So this is so basically this is an item that will come back to council because we have a decision to make. So we're not making it tonight. We're just suggesting here what was a course of direction that we're considering, but there may be,
Just gonna remember that process. of-
yes. Comfort.
Maybe you can do it. That's probably. Probably, yeah.
So it'll come back to us. So we're good. We don't have to discuss it any further.
Okay.
And so on that note, I turn it over to the deputy mayor.
Yes, I guess we were going to talk about A
Yes.
and but unless we want to make a resolution, make the meeting longer. Or we could do it at the next meeting because we have till October 16th.
Well, basically, yes. So what we're doing at this point is we're collecting input to, yes.
So we could just email it?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Ernest, I just saw this morning, so.
Okay. Sure, yes. So then I would want to bring forward E and F.
Go ahead. For the school, yes.
This, right, for the School of Northern Ontario School of Medicine and guaranteed income.
There's nothing left.
I'm fine. Good, done. Done.
Any further items that I have to talk about?
Nope, all gone.
Oh, no.
Okay, so on that note, Jennifer?
We're at 7. Deputy Mayor Roy Akers and Councillor Kelly. The council approved the correspondence and information as circulated with the agenda of September 6, 2023.
All in favor? Yvonne, thank you so much. We move now to what we had recommended at our last meeting for support.
Yeah, move on a seconder, please. Councillor Champagne and Deputy Mayor Roy Akers. That council for the municipality of East Ferris supports the municipality's Charles resolution regarding municipalities retaining surplus proceeds from taxes.
All in favor? All in favor, thank you. Approval of the accounts payable.
For a seconder. Councillor and Deputy Mayor Roy Akers. That council approved the general accounts for the municipality of East Ferris as indicated in the check register dated September 26, 2023 in the amount of $580,036.99.
All in favor? Okay, abstain. Okay. Other business? None, confirmatory bylaw.
Move on a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Roy Akers, Councillor Champagne. Nope, it's order. Whereas council for the municipality of East Ferris deemed it expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council from September 12th through September 26, 2023, be read the first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2023-42, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Favor? Okay, they good meeting.
Adjournment.
Oh, yes, yes.
Mover, seconder, please, Councillor Trahan, Councillor Kelly. We do now adjourn at 8:55 p.m.